Balake, where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here, everyone. Welcome back for some more SPTV. I'm having a chat tonight with former Sea Org member Jenny Strom, although many will know you as Jenny REECE. That's what I knew you as, was Jenny REECE, but we'll get into all that. Welcome, Jenny. It's great to talk to you.
Thanks.
It's crazy. As we were talking before, I didn't hear any of my echo, and now I hear, oh, it went away. Okay, we're good.
I know I was going to say, you're going to have to like tone down the whole like sound OCD thing, because I'm out in like the boonies.
No problem. And hold on, guys. Let me know if you can hear everything okay in the live chat. I'm seeing some people saying muted. Not sure what that's about, but anyway, so it's so crazy that you and I are sitting here having a chat after all these years.
I know. Who would have thought? I didn't even think.
I mean, the whole time that I was in the Sea Org on L. Ron Hubbard Way, you were, you were the has for bridge, right? So you were the HC. I try to have this chat just the way we would have the chat and try to define some of the terms so that people know what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
So for the people watching, Bridge Publications is one of the Sea Org organizations responsible for publishing, printing and publishing and selling. Well, how would you describe Bridge?
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be the dissemination org per se, but really the emphasis goes more onto like what they call like church lines, org lines. But it's but yeah, so we were manufacturing and selling the books.
Right.
And its purpose is supposed to be dissemination though.
And so, but isn't books dissemination?
Yeah, that's what they say. Books make booms.
And in a weird way, you know, people who watch a lot of Scientology videos understand that there's sort of this strange hierarchy of organizations in Scientology. And even though Bridge was just responsible for books, it's a senior organization. It's a higher level organization than almost all other Sea Org members who work in the service orgs. So like the Sea Org members that work at Bridge Publications are senior as far as the Sea Org echelon goes to all of the Sea Org members that work on L. Ron Hubbard Way in the service orgs. Right. And so you were in charge of HCO, which is basically the human resources division. It's where all the ethics occurs. Yeah. What was HCO Bridge like? Since you don't have all these public Scientologists whose ethics you have to get in, what does HCO Bridge mainly deal with?
So we did a lot with, well, obviously the recruitment, personnel stuff, posting people, ethics and justice, the communication, the usual communication stuff, the cars, the vehicles, you know, all that. And it's true, we didn't have public ethics. And I guess when we were doing manufacturing, there was also a lot of emphasis on org boarding and like streamlining the org board really in the flows of the department or the division. Really, it became a division.
So a lot of posting, a lot of personnel issues. How does you know, HCO handles recruitment? How did you guys deal with recruitment when Bridge itself is a higher level organization? Did you recruit directly to Bridge, or did you recruit to replace other Sea Org members who were moving up to Bridge?
So in the beginning, it was, yeah, we could just recruit people straight in. It changed to where you had to have prior staff experience. So we would recruit generally, but a lot of times what we would do is we would recruit and then like usually do like a 2-for-1 kind of a swap with other orgs. So we could get a more experienced person and give them like 2 recruits for it. Or like I toured to a lot of the class 5 orgs and I recruited for them in order to spring people.
Is that right? What was that like for you as a Sea Org member, seeing all those lower level orgs, those class 5 orgs? What did you take away from that?
So much, but a lot of that didn't happen until I think later in my time there. But it was so eye-opening because you had like you always hear these things at events, right? About how big and booming and like these places are packed and these course rooms are so full and whatever. So we go there, we think, okay, good, we're gonna have this huge pool of people to recruit from, and we're gonna get this, Joe Schmo because he wants to be in the Sea Org. So we'll recruit up a few people for them. And you arrive and it's like, where are all the people? Is this a bad night, or does it get better? Kind of, whatever. And then the more time you spend there, the more honestly sorry I felt for them. I felt bad, because you had these small organizations with so many pressures coming from multiple points, coming to the same people demanding so much. And so what I started doing was, instead of recruiting like two or three people for them, I would recruit like six. I went to Boston. I think I recruited like 11 for them. Like signed up and arrived. Like signed up 11. I think arrived 4 or 5. And then like when I went to DC, I think I signed up 6 people, arrived 3 of them. So I just started doing a bit more because you just see them struggling out there, trying to get staff for every single different man. They just don't have a lot of people. I mean, I think that was it. Because also some of the things that were said at events, that was another thing. Some of the things that were said at events were about orgs I had just been to. And I was like, what the fuck? They said this whole thing about Kansas City. And when I showed up there, the door was locked. I had to call like 3 or 4 different staff members. I had to get numbers from CLO East US, start calling the staff members to get somebody to show up to let me in. Then I didn't even know why I was there because, I mean, no one was there. Then I waited till the nighttime when they finally opened, and then the course room opened, and I think there were like 2 people, 3 people. And I was kind of like, well, this isn't the big booming thing I was told about, and then I went to, at one point was in New Mexico. That was probably the worst one I went to, but,
Oh, Albuquerque.
Yeah, Albuquerque
So
org.
bad.
It was not great. And so they did a whole thing to promote this event with a special briefing for me and blah, blah, blah. And so, like maybe 35 or 40 people showed up. And I was like, well, this is kind of like a shitty outcome. But someone said, one of the staff members said to me, that they couldn't believe so many people showed up for this, that they can't even get this many people to a birthday event. And I was like, it's 35 people. And they were like, yeah, we probably normally get like 13 people. And I was like,
I was going to say,
oh.
in Albuquerque, you rounded up 45 people to come to one place at one time. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's what they said. I was like shocked because when I went to Toronto, they got like 100 and something people there, and we signed up, I think, 8 people at that event. But yeah, so I went there and I was like, oh. But yeah, it was just kind of sad. It just sucked to see all that. And I think it was just very eye-opening, like where's all this expansion? Where are all these people? It surely isn't that I'm just arriving at the bad time when I had been to so many different orgs and not seen anything great. I mean, Boston and DC are probably a bit bigger, but.
But even being at Bridge, which is considered an international level org, would you say you definitely bought into the propaganda Miscavige would push at these events about how big and booming and expanding and large Scientology was around the world?
I did, yes. And then, but sometimes, I'm not even gonna lie, I hated going to the events. Hated everything about them. I hated sitting there. I hated clapping 1,500 times. I hate hip hip hooray. Like that, what is that? Like some kind of weird fucking Hitler thing? Like some people would be like hip hip hooray and do the arm up and everything. And I was like, super cringy. And so, but I, was a good Sea Org member. So I sucked up my banky attitude and did my job.
So I realized we jumped into this discussing some specific topics, but let's tell the people like how, like, you were born into Scientology. Let's give people like how did you get into Scientology? How'd you get into the Sea Org?
Let's see. So my mom was working for the San Jose mission. I think it was also called the Santa Clara mission, one of the two, whatever, either way, back in the day. And when I was 3, she and my dad joined the Sea Org with AO and AOLA. And so they were recruited to be part of the big, like, Knots evolution. You know how they have all those evolutions. So they were doing a big, huge round of training people, to be that. So
So
we moved down there.
real quick for all the people, and I know a lot of the people are really picking up on the lingo after all these months and years of videos. But AOLA is the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles. That's the one in the southeasternmost portion of L. Ron Hubbard Way. That's where they deliver the OT levels. That's where you learn about Xenu. And when you say the Knots evolution, Knots means OT5, New Era Dianetics for OTs. And that means the evolution to get a whole bunch of auditors trained up to Class 9 auditor, which is the level of auditor that you have to be to audit someone on OT5. So are we talking late 70s here?
Yeah. Yeah. So they
Okay.
joined in 79, I think. Yeah, I was 3, so it had to have been 79. So
Okay.
yeah. And then, so, my whole world changes because now I'm in this random ass city in like a random ass daycare. And it's like, whoa. I don't remember a whole lot because I was super young, but I remember not recognizing anything. And so then my parents, so they, I guess once they were done with the EPF, they got whisked away to go to Flag because that's where you have to train to that level because it's considered Class 9. So you can only train on that at Flag. So
And
they
the
went and left
EPF is
me in
like
LA.
the Sea Org boot camp is the EPF.
Right. Yeah. So they did that, and then they went to Flag, and I was in LA. So
Your parents both went to Flag for training. You're 3 years old. You stayed in LA without them.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
truly probably one of the things that I am probably to date still most sad about in my childhood. Because it was horrible, because I got to see, all the other parents coming to see their kids because we used to have a thing called family time. And so I'd run out every day hoping, my parents would, come as well, and they never did. And it just was super sad. Eventually, I end up with a caretaker with my 2 friends, and because their parents did the same thing. And he was like a great person. He actually showed up for us. He was there during family time or most of them. If he had a little time on the weekend, he would actually take us to like the beach and places like that. He would buy us little ice creams. He would just, he just was there for us, and he was a constant. So he was like a big deal. I actually named my brother after him. I
You
was
named your
5.
brother after
So
him?
yeah, I was 5 in my defense. But yeah. So eventually he gets reposted. I think it was what the story was. So then we're going through a series of caretakers. I have absolutely no idea who's coming to get us, who I don't even know who some of these people are when I wake up in the morning. And there was a couple times we actually got left overnight at the daycare because I think they didn't either have someone to come get us or the person got too busy to come get us. I don't really know. So it was it sucked. And I guess my dad caught wind of that. So he pretty much told them, you either have the 3 kids come out here to Florida with us or I go back. And so, I think that was probably, I'm sure I don't have all the time right, but I'm going to guess it was probably close to like a year or so. So I stayed he put me in the nursery with, I think Roanne, when she was like a little tiny thing, because he just saw there was a nanny there and a baby. So, or a young child. So he just shoved me in there. I don't remember anything of that. He just told me that. And so then eventually where kind of my memory picks back up is when we're back in LA, when I'm 5, 4, 5, 5. And so, yeah. And then I guess Erica and Brad, those were the 2 other people. I didn't mean to say their names, but whatever. So they were, I guess, staying with us.
Yeah, it's okay to say names. I mean, unless you just
Yeah,
personally don't want to.
Yeah, just more. They're good people. Well, Brad has passed, unfortunately, but I don't want anyone bothering them. But anyway, so I think they were with my mom for a little while with me because my mom finished first. And then, then eventually we all moved into the Fountain building and we were just down the hall. So I guess we'd gotten so used to just being with each other all the time that from then on, we pretty much were always together. So I was either staying with them and their parents, or they were with me and with mine. We just always ended up sort of being together. But yeah.
With Roanne?
No, with Eric and Brad. It was the three of us
Okay.
since our parents went to training. And then from then on through the rest of our lives, pretty much.
I got it. Many of the people may not know that Roanne is L. Ron Hubbard's granddaughter.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure she doesn't
she's
even
out of
remember that
Scientology
because
now.
I didn't. Sorry.
So you were, you didn't remember that Roanne was L. Ron Hubbard's granddaughter?
Well, I was 3. She must have been, I'm going to guess 1 or 2. I think she's just a little bit younger than me.
Oh,
So I
okay,
don't,
okay.
I'm sure she doesn't even know. I only know because my dad told me.
Oh.
He
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to put me in that nursery. He just saw that there was actually an adult there. So he just snuck me in there.
And that's probably why there was an adult there, because they may not have cared about all those other kids, but they damn sure needed to have someone with Roanne.
Yeah. Yeah. We were a hot mess at the daycare. Let me just tell you.
So you were 3 years old when your parents joined the Sea Org. At that young age, you're not even in the cadet org, right?
No.
Okay.
You
But
didn't
then
get to be in
later,
the cadet until you're 10 at that time.
So then later, I guess you go to the cadet org. How old were you when you were actually put into the Sea Org proper?
The first time I was 12, they came and told me from the cadet org that it was time to go. It was time for me to report to duty, as they call it. And I was like, shit, that's not what I want to do. But it's kind of like, you kind of grow up. So like the whole time you're in the daycare, your whole goal is to get to when you turn 8, you're supposed to become, they call it a pre-cadet. And then and that's where they start having you work more, and they, do more time on courses instead of like field trips and stuff. And so the idea is that by the time you're 10, you're much more indoctrinated and used to working and more used to Scientology type stuff so that you can be a cadet. And so like they talk it up a lot, and everything you're kind of there for, whether you like it or not, it's just sort of your fate and your destiny. You just know it. And that's where you're kind of, I guess, for lack of better words, you're just sort of being groomed to be. And so, you're always looking forward to that moment, because also when you're a cadet, you get the hell out of the daycare. And so we're pretty excited about that until we get to the cadet org, and then we hate everything about it. And then, so when I turned 10, I got, to be in the cadet org. And that was like a total hellhole. Like, honestly, probably, I didn't realize how much I have like, I don't even know how to describe how it makes me feel. It's so fucking irritating. And I didn't know how bad it was until I was trying to talk about it with my cousin. And the whole interview, I'm like pausing, I'm choppy, and I'm just progressively getting more irritated. And finally, I was like, I think we just need to end. Like, I'm done talking about this for now. But it was like, it was more and more of anything that's kind of a childlike thing is little by little stripped away from you. And you're just told that, like, the whole purpose of the cadet org is to make, what was it, like, to make able-bodied Sea Org members or something like that. So they treat you like little baby Sea Org members, I guess, if you will, because we're still little. But we're expected to work, and our schedule lengthens, and then we have posts and we have duties. And then they created a cadet RPF even at one point, which was absurd. Maybe explain the RPF. It's the worst thing ever.
Well, the RPF is like the Sea Org prison thought and rehabilitation camp, thought reconditioning camp. When Sea Org members are assigned to the RPF, I mean, these days we're told they've basically canceled. There is no more RPF. There's no one on post as the RPF I see in any continents, and they'll just either fix you or offload you, as the current reports we're getting. But when a Sea Org member would be signed to the RPF, it wouldn't be unheard of for them to be on this program, which is essentially a prison camp for 5 to 10 years, no contact with their spouse, not spoken unless spoken, don't speak to anyone unless you're spoken to, running everywhere. 5 hours of auditing or sec checking a day, the rest of the day hard labor. I mean, it's
All
the kind of
black.
program that people would think couldn't exist in the United States of America.
Yeah. I
That
mean,
couldn't be legal.
as a Sea Org member, I always had it in my mind, if I ever get assigned to RPF, I will just leave. That will be the thing that will make me walk out that front door. I will not do it. And I did a
Same.
lot of horrible things in there. I would not do that program. So they tried to create a version of it for children. It wasn't quite as bad, but they segregated them from the rest of us. They weren't allowed to talk to us unless we spoke to them first, but they would even try to avoid that. They didn't do all that auditing, but they did try to get them to do some of the, here comes the words again, CCHs, and lots of lower conditions and on all of their dynamics and stuff. And I mean, they're 10 years old. It's like, what the hell?
You were saying what they were having the kids do. Oh my God.
That was they tried to even make them wear black and stuff, but we didn't also have very many clothes, so like kind of whatever. And my friend was in there.
Wow. By the way, you mentioned something that reminded me. We didn't show everyone your channel. You started a channel with your cousin called Cults and Atheists: A Search for Knowledge and Healing. So I assume you're the cult part and he's the atheist part, or both, a little bit of both.
That's what he says. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. And I think we could probably talk about it later more, but the whole that whole thing, like the healing part was very much like his end of it, that of what he wanted for me. And because he wanted me to be able to get through everything and come out better. And like like a lot of, they always say women are like true crime junkies. I've always been like more like the cult junkie. Like I would listen to so many different like cult podcasts and stuff for like years now. And yeah, it's kind of an interesting story in the way that it all kind of leads to how I'm sort of here now.
Yeah. And so I kind of feel like I want to cover big parts of this relatively quickly so that we can
Okay.
cover like a lot of ground.
Okay.
But but like as you're going through the pre-cadet, cadet org, levels or whatever, you've got a younger brother as well. Like how many siblings do you have?
So I have a brother and a sister.
Okay.
Yeah. So my brother's 5 years younger than me, and my sister is 3 years younger than him. So yeah, so I guess to answer your original question, I don't know how I ended up down that other rabbit hole, but yeah, I was told to go to the EPF when I was 12, and that it was my time, or whatever. It was me and a few other people. But what was also happening at that time is all of the kids who had parents at INT, at the international base, were also being made to do the EPF because they were told they aren't going to be allowed to go to the INT ranch until they do the EPF. And that was a requirement for being at that ranch at the time.
Wow.
For the ones who are our age, like 10 to 12 years old, because that's old. But so we went, all of us went. At least I thought at least my friends were there. I made zero effort to get through any courses, not to mention they were way too hard for me. And I didn't really care. So eventually, a bunch of my friends finally, they had people in their word clearing them, helping them to get through, because they were all struggling. Like not all, but most of them were struggling to, get through, to get up to be where their parents were. Eventually they were pretty much all gone. So I was still there, and they told me they were going to fitness board me out of the EPF, and I didn't give a shit. I was like, all right, sounds good to me. And so I showed back up at the cadet org when they, said I had to go, but I didn't want to be part of the cadet org ever again. So I was going to the school, and eventually the cadet coordinator, it was Nedra Kohi at the time, she told me that I had to either be fully a cadet or I had to leave the school and everything. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll just leave the school and everything. So I was hanging around at home a little bit. My dad's losing his mind because he's trying to work. He wasn't in the Sea Org at this point, but my mom was. So they eventually got me into a Scientology public school. No, Scientology, not Sea Org school, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I didn't
Which one
last
was
very,
it?
it was called Ability Plus.
Ability Plus. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It wasn't
There's
Delphi
a handful. There's a handful of
Kingsley.
them that you hear about. You hear about the Apple School.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Was there a Delphi back then?
Yes. Delphi and Mace Kingsley. I remember when Sterling went to Mace Kingsley, actually, when he got to leave. So actually, I had the option of going there too. I said no. Because when we were in the ATA school, when they took us out of public school, they actually rented some of the classrooms in Delphi and started our school there. And the Delphi kids and the Mace Kingsley kids were so mean to us. They were so rude. And like we were like these substandard, like little gremlins crawling around their property. You know what I mean? So I wasn't going to take that, just in case anyone was wondering. I used to keep track of the ones that were assholes to us. And I somehow got really, really good at picking combo locks. And so what I would do is I'd see which lockers were theirs. And I would go in between classes and I would open their lockers and I would switch out all their contents so that when they would go to leave school or change subjects, they couldn't find any of their shit. We had a whole network. People would tell me they would follow these kids, give me the locker numbers and everything. So all I had to do is go around picking them and switching the contents. So needless to say, when they offered to send me there, I was like, no, thanks. I don't need to be one of them.
That is amazing. So, I mean, I get hung up on the little thing. So your mom is still in the Sea Org, your dad's out of the Sea Org, but they're keeping you in the cadet org until they're just like, oh, this is never going to work. They didn't like jump at the opportunity to get a kid out of the cadet org. They wanted to keep you there as long as they could.
Yeah, I mean, because the whole idea is that we don't do anything but eventually join the Sea Org like that. You know, like a lot of us had just kind of accepted that even if we didn't like it or didn't want to, that was our fate. You know, if we were lucky, we could escape it, but likely that wasn't going to happen.
Look at this comment from Amber. It says, Nedra was my cadet coordinator.
She was it for a long time.
Do you know who Amber
became
is?
it after Bob Harry, who was like a total disaster. He was horrid. He used to beat the shit out of Nikki Shulman, like to the point where we kids were banging on the door, yelling at Bob to stop beating him. We even went around the daycare to the window on the other side and tried to force it open to try and stop him. We actually grabbed Bob's arm one time to do it. He and Nikki just he did beat a couple other people. He had like a belt and shit that he would use, but Nikki was really the one that would, like, you know, light a fire up his ass. Yeah.
So were your parents divorced at this point, or was this back when you could be in the Sea Org and still be married to someone who was out of the Sea Org?
It started that way, and then so they were still married for a while, and then like he left when I was 9, so we had to move off base, so we had to leave the Fountain Building, and we moved to Edgemont, and so they started having a lot of troubles. They were fighting all the time. It was pretty awful. And then when I was 14, she told me that actually all in the same exact sentence, practically same exact conversation, she told me that she had just beat cancer. She was divorced from my dad and is engaged to another person. I was like, what? That was like a shock to my soul. I was like, what? Oh, okay. What? And then he showed up a few minutes later to meet us all. And we were just like, oh, hi. This is weird.
The new fiance?
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really.
Would your folks still have been around when I got to LA in 2002? Like, would I know them? Would I know your parents for any reason?
I don't know, because I think my mom by then was an Osa Int.
Oh, your mom's Kathy True.
Yeah.
I always forget that. Oh my God. So the new fiance was, I don't know who she's married to who has the last name True.
Kevin True.
So that
It's
was the new
not
fiance?
related to Keith and Jane and Jason and Sarah. That's a different family, same last name.
Ah. And so then is there any reason I would have known your dad? Was he still around as a public?
I kind of doubt it because he wasn't like super on lines or anything. Yeah, like he's very much a Scientologist. He's just hasn't done anything, I don't think, since um mid 90s ish, golden age of tech.
Wow. So your mom, Kathy True, was the person in the Office of Special Affairs who was assigned to like handle me when they kind of were like, uh-oh, we think Aaron's posting on Mike and Marty's blogs. She was the one assigned to basically confront me and try to get me to confess. And she had some little underling, some little apprentice girl that would follow her around. And it's almost like your mom would play good cop and her little apprentice would play bad cop, which is ridiculous. They've got like this teenage girl in Osa trying to intimidate people. Anyway, just a whole bunch of craziness. So like, I never knew your mom was Kathy True until you and I started speaking last year, or whenever it was.
Yeah.
It seems like it's been a while.
We don't look like each other, so I suppose like nobody hardly ever even though like we could be standing in the same room and most of the time no one would ever know. We don't, I mean, we just don't look like each other. I'm half
Not at
Japanese,
all.
but yeah, so she's all white in every
That's what
way.
I was gonna ask you. What's the ethnicity of your father?
So I have
What?
so
Yeah.
my birth dad is not like my dad per se. He was at the San Jose mission too, but he left when I was 1.5. And then when I was 2, my other dad came along and I'm actually adopted by him. So he was all I ever knew of a dad, really. He raised me.
Wow. Wow. And but Kathy is your biological mom.
Yep. All the way.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. So then if we fast forward to when you actually get into the Sea Org proper for the first time, how old were you there and how did that happen and which org did you go to?
Okay, so basically what happened was after I went to the other school, I got kicked out of it too because I reported the pervy teacher that was there and they decided that I was the problem. And so they sent me away and that was fine. I didn't need a fucking disgusting man looking up my skirt. So whatever. Um,
And
so
this was a
then
Scientologist, of course?
I don't know if he was, but the school definitely was like, and he was the one who come in and teach some form of martial arts. So he would only come in once or twice a week, I think it was. And I saw him doing some shady stuff. And then he tried to do it with me and I called him out on it and he didn't like it. And so I went and told the headmaster, as they call him that, the principal, basically, that happened. And she was like, look, we just think that maybe there's another school that you might be better suited for. I was like, fine, whatever. I don't give a shit. So then I'm out of school again. So my mom was trying to send me to the Mace Kingsley Ranch. And I had a friend who was already there and she had already told me about the beatings and stuff. So I was going to have none of that. So I said, no. My grandma starts to lose her mind. She just can't handle it. And so she's just like, send her out to me. I will put her in school. We'll get her through college. And, we'll get her caught up. We'll go to a private school. We'll get her caught up on her education and move forward. So I was going to go actually do that. And my dad and mom didn't want me to leave. So my dad talked me into doing Key to Life, actually. And my really good friend was in town and was also doing it. So she was also on me. She's like, come twin with me. And so I just thought, I'll give this to them. Since I'm going to be leaving them forever, I'll do this course. I'll let them have that, and then he was kind of like said, if at the end of it, I didn't change my mind about it, that was fine. I can go live with my grandma and whatever. So, during that time, my friend gets recruited and I keep, doing my partial schedule, happily slacking the rest of the day, doing a great time. But then another friend of mine gets recruited, or comes and gets me for some special briefing, is what I'm told. So I end up in the office with Gavin and Nick, Gavin Potter and Nick Christensen. And they do that whole briefing, the one they call the ruin briefing. And, you know, I'm just sitting there thinking like the whole world is going to end. And I'm just being selfish. And because I don't want to work anymore, because I've been working since I was like 7 and I don't want to do it anymore. And then I just felt so bad about it, felt really guilty about it. And then, so I signed the contract. And then my friend tried to worm out of it. So I thought, you know what? If she doesn't start right away, this is perfect. It's my out. So I told them I'm not arriving unless she does. And so they went full blast on her. They separated us, you know, in the room and whatever. Got her convinced to start. And I was like, oh, shit, now I have to do it. I was like, ugh. She's the flakiest
who is
person in
that?
the world. Her name is Carly. Sorry, Carly, if you watch this, but she was always very flaky, but she was one of my best friends.
Is she in or is she out now?
No, she didn't even get through the EPF. And
oh, okay. Is she out of Scientology?
I don't know. I lost touch with her, so I'm not
okay,
sure.
okay.
I lost touch with a lot of people once I was actually in the Sea Org.
When you said, sorry if you're watching this, I thought maybe you guys were friends still or something like that.
You never know who's watching. So I figure I'll apologize in advance in case. She's, you know, her parents are in the Sea Org though. Mick and Linda Sarkovich. And
oh
yeah. She was a good-hearted person. She really was. She just was a little bit on the flaky side, but she just was like the rest of us, you know. She just had the same abuses that we did and the lack of education that we all had. And
so Mickey Sarkovich has to be her brother. Roy
youngest.
Sarkovich is her dad, right?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, Roy, that's right. Yeah, Mickey's the little brother. Rocky's the middle one. That's what it is. And Linda's her mom.
So Mickey's the only one I ever knew. He was still at ASHO when I got there.
He was such a nice kid. I thought, anyways.
Well, I guess my only relationship to him was as his senior. And I thought this was just a brand of Sea Org member that anyone showing up with fresh eyes is going to go, what in the fuck are you doing here? Like, why are you here? Like, you need to leave. You clearly don't want to be here. You like, I mean, I'm not shitting on Mickey as a person. It's almost like it's what happens when you have kids who, as this, like your story, where you didn't choose to be there. You weren't given a choice. You weren't allowed to go do other things. And then by the time I got there, Mickey was probably in his early 20s. He just had never been allowed to do anything else. He clearly didn't want to be there. They didn't want to let him leave. So he got to a point where he's like, I can basically do what I want because they won't let me leave anyway. So what can they do to me? He was a horrible Sea Org member, but only because he didn't want to be there and nobody would let him leave.
Yeah. So that was the story for a lot of the ranchers. They used to call themselves the ranchers. And the ranch came after my time. When I was there, they actually made their first attempt at it, and it was a total dump. It was so bad that they actually woke us up in the middle of the night and made us leave and go back home. And we all showed back up at our parents' places literally at like probably midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, they were like, this is not what LRH had in mind for a ranch. So
that's the pack ranch. Oh, that's right. You've got the pack ranch and then you got the int ranch. And when we hear from like Sterling and Mike Brown and Jenna Miscavige, we're hearing about the int ranch. But when we talk about Mickey Sarkovich, and I think Brandon Orlando was one of those kids. Yeah. I think Anthony, his father was also at the FB. Anthony Cohen was one of those kids. Yeah. Was Sepp Astrupgard one of those kids?
Yep. Sepp and his brother Nick. They're
That's
like my
right.
sister's age, so they're all my sister's grouping.
Was your sister in the pack ranch?
Yeah, she was.
Wow, I got to talk to her sometime.
She probably
Wait,
won't.
you did a chat on your channel with her. Oh no, wait. Am I thinking of Natalie? Oh, you haven't done a chat with your
Yeah, you're
sister?
talking about Natalie.
Oh,
I'm sure. Yeah.
you guys all look alike to me.
You fucking racist.
Ow! Well, there's a lot of Japanese on Hawaii and the Pacific Islanders, So anyway,
They
whatever.
don't identify as that. They identify as Pacific Islanders. I was corrected on that one time.
Is that right?
Believe me. Oh my God. Yeah. I was raised in the cadet. Or what am I supposed to say? I was kind of dumb to a lot of the social things. I couldn't tell the difference between. I can't tell the difference between any Asian people, honestly. So I'll just play it safe and say, "Oh, you Asian." Cool.
I actually can. I can tell the difference between Indonesian and Japanese and Chinese and Korean. I've gotten pretty good at it. Okay, so I got you off track though. So you were in your Sea Org recruit interview,
Yeah.
and Carly. But see, I know exactly what you're talking about now. Like I know who Carly Sarkovich is. So you said, I'm not joining unless she joins, or I'm not arriving unless she arrives. Does she arrive for like a second, and so you arrive, but then she leaves, but you're still there?
We were both on actually for a little while there. She was one of these girls who thought she was going to end up in a relationship with Gavin. And yeah.
No.
So when I guess, he would always do his conditions and stuff for this. And so he came and talked to her to make sure she understood that that wasn't his intention. And she left like basically right after that.
So what you're telling me is that Gavin Potter got into trouble for recruiting so many different young girls by making them believe they were going to be his girlfriend when they arrived, that he actually had to go apologize to people for it?
He didn't apologize to her because he more, I think, led her to believe that she mistook the situation. She misunderstood.
Oh.
But being in Bridge later on, seeing Gavin go through this a time or two, yes, he had his like, yeah, it was a little bit of a chronic problem for that guy. And the poor girls,
Gavin recruited you, but then you ended up being the has at Bridge, and then he was working underneath you.
He was gone by then. So, because I started in the sales areas, like I was an admin for a while, and then I became a salesperson, which I wasn't great at, and then I worked in the orders department with Heather, actually, and so those are the production divisions or the tech divisions, for Bridge. So I was that for actually like my whole beginning, and so then he got married to Jen, and then I think she got pregnant. They went to the class 5 org. He came back earlier, if I remember correctly. But what happened was when he came back, ASI was doing a whole thing to get somebody into ASI. So he got used to replace somebody from the ship, who then replaced somebody from the ASI office at Flag, who then went into the main ASI office. So that all went down because Gavin originally was from ASI, so Bridge had no say in the matter. It was like when Bridge was trying to get him back because he was like the hot shit recruiter. ASI was like, oh, pump the brakes, our resource, and the rest of y'all can fuck off. So
it's funny. I've gotten conflicting info recently on whether Gavin was at ASI and when and for how long and what. Are you quite sure that he at one point had been at ASI?
I was told that, so it's possible that I have it wrong. I was told that he was at ASI for whatever time, and then he I don't know what the whole situation was with Mary and their daughter and what all exactly went down. I think because I think I've gotten some of the details between Mary and Jennifer a bit mixed up, so I'm gonna just bow out on that. But that's what we were told, is that he was originally, he came from ASI and got through his stuff and got posted at Bridge. But I think what happened was he was originally in a higher position at Bridge and then got busted again and then became recruiter.
Yeah.
Which he was,
yeah.
Considered to be
He was
like,
definitely in CMO CW at one point, and then just from trying to piece different or connect different dots that I got from different people, it sounded like maybe he was sent on a mission into ASI to maybe do something with Janice, not Janice Grady. Why do I always forget Janice's sister's name? Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know Janice, so I couldn't really tell you. I knew a lot of
That's
the ASI
fine.
staff, but I just don't know Janice, so I can't make a connection for you.
That's okay. I'm getting us off track anyway.
It is also possible that sometimes, when people are on their way in and they're doing the special clearances for it, they'll be kind of working there. But if their clearances don't come through or something doesn't really work out on that, they just become the resource to get someone else. So they'll get shifted somewhere else. So it's possible. Like RTC had RTC trainees. ASI did the same thing.
Right.
I saw people
Terry
in training
Gamboa.
for ASI.
Terry Gamboa is Janice Gillum Grady's sister. Terry Gamboa at one point was EDASI.
That's before my time.
She was, and she was not Team Miscavige. And at the risk of getting this wrong, I think he sent a CMO mission into ASI to basically figure out how to remove Terry or get rid of her. But I run the risk of getting some details about that wrong. Okay.
Yeah, Norman Starkey was the trustee and being the ED at the time when I was in Bridge in the start. Then Barbara Ruiz became it.
Barbara Ruiz. Okay, so by the way, but how crazy is it that Brittany Garrett is now married to Javier Ruiz?
I mean, he's got to be like 20 years older than her, at least 30
Easy.
years.
But like you and I knew
older
Brittany.
Than me. Yeah, I know Brittany. I don't.
She's a horrible, horrible person.
Yeah.
Could you imagine having to be married to her?
Oh my God. So I've known her since she was like tiny, like toddler age kind of thing. So I know her. I know Randy's my age, or a little older than me. He was in the Cadet Oregon CEO with me. And she was like a little itty bitty thing. And her dad was our bus driver. Jim Garrett was our bus driver.
I remember him.
This is his line. All the way back through to his seat. All the way back through to his seat. He said it to us every day. But yeah.
Okay, we're just totally dishing here. I remember when Brittany was the DCO AOLA, and she randomly got married to whoever the receptionist at Flag was in Clearwater, Florida. They'd never like met each other before or something. And so she had like the weirdest long distance Sea Org relationship you'd ever heard. Like, it's not one of the normal things where they get married and they get sent off to separate places. Like, they'd never known each other, but they basically became like phone pals, and then randomly got like CSW approval to go get married. It was just like the craziest thing ever. And that's probably honestly the only marriage she had in her life, which couldn't have been a real marriage until I guess somehow she left the Sea Org and wound up married to Javier.
Yeah, when that happened, I was a little like, what the fuck? She's like married her dad, but I don't know. I mean, at the same time, like I say, I've known her since she was little, so I've seen like a really kind of bright, bubbly side of her, and I've seen like her just absolutely like bitch out on people. But she didn't usually get that way with me because we only knew each other as friends, and we never had to work together. So we didn't have to have that like conflict, there, because otherwise I probably would have decked her. But
yeah,
whatever.
I can totally see her being the bright, bubbly. It's funny, for some reason I think of Laura and Megan Anderson, Laura FM. I just think of Brittany as a young person having the same energy that Laura has, and then having all that energy channeled for evil as the DCO. Being the DCO of a service org is one of the most thankless, difficult jobs you can have. And when you're doing that job for a major Sea Org, your only choice is to be a giant asshole. Like that's how you're supposed to do that job. I don't know. I mean, that's been my experience with DCOs.
I think that goes for a lot of Sea Org posts. Like it's just like, especially over the years, the pressure just got more and more, and then the amount of stuff they were demanding from the exact same people just got more and more and more, and eventually you're just getting tired all the time, you're not sleeping, we're getting punished for fucking everything, and then just eventually I think you just start snapping at people all the time because it's just everything just is irritating, you know.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so thanks to Carly the Flake. Thanks to Carly, you end up in the Sea Org. Do you go right to Bridge?
yeah, I was recruited for Bridge.
Okay.
And so like when I was on the EPF, it was really funny because like I've never been like, you know, like I've just spent my whole life, I've always thought that I was a bit like the ugly duckling. And so, you know, and I, you know, just is what it is. That's always how I felt. And so I was on the EPF and someone's like, are you going to Bridge? I said, yeah. How'd you know? And they're like, oh, you know, that's where all the pretty girls go. And I was like, okay, that's just very random and weird. But I was like, okay, thanks. And he goes, yeah, so you're going to basically be a Bridge babe, right? I said, a what? And I said, Bridge babe. And I'm like, the fuck is that? I was like, okay, I don't know. Clearly he must be talking, you know, he must think I'm somebody else, whatever. But then it was like this weird reputation thing that Bridge had for a little while. It's this like kind of stigma because eventually it ends up getting us in trouble because now all these girls, people are like referring to us as Bridge babes, but now we're also getting in trouble for being little 2D flow ass fucking girls. And we're like, I don't even know that person who just called me that. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen that person, but we get interrogs and shit like that too.
Really?
Oh
So
yeah, like it
was
got
the idea
pounded
there
out
that
hard.
was the idea there that if people thought they could call you guys babes, you must be doing something to bring that about?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, like we're going around like sticking our tits out and shaking our ass or something. I don't know. Like it was weird, but that was the way it was viewed, was that, you know, we're like that off purpose, where, you know, our all of our attention is just on, you know, tootie flowing and being that, you know. And it was like, I'm sorry,
Interesting.
half like, yeah, but we'd be up all night just like everyone else, you know, grinding away and be dead ass tired. And people are like, interrogatory, you know, who in Bridge have you, you know, who in the work have you seen tootie flowing? Who have you seen off purpose? Who have you seen doing this? Like, you know how they do where in the interrogs where they word it like 500 different ways. Yeah, just to catch it in case
Yeah,
you didn't get it the
exactly.
first time they asked. Yeah.
We've been trying to teach all the protesters a little bit more and more Scientology lingo so they can use it with the Sea Org members. And one of the ones they've really picked up is Tootie Flow. Have you seen like confident Chris will be like, hey, stop Tootie flowing me. I don't want to get in trouble.
Oh my God, this young members are probably like, how the fuck does he know that? Like,
Yes. Hey, are you Tootie flowing me? Stop. Which for the live chat, Tootie flowing is basically Scientology lingo for flirting.
You're putting out them sexy vibes.
That's right. So, what year did you start working at Bridge?
End of 91.
91. So by the
Yeah,
time I
was
got
15.
there, 15 years old,
It was a little thing.
1991. And so you never went to high school, right? No diploma?
So what happened was when I went to that Scientology school before they kicked me out, they were working on catching me up because I was way, way behind. So I got caught back up. And then when I first joined the Sea Org, I guess something had blown up, you know, on that front. So we were going to school on the weekends.
Right.
Yeah. So I was working my way through. I think I had gotten but all they were going two ways. They were either trying to get you to finish by the time you aged out at 18, finish everything they had on their academic courses or whatever, or get you to the point where you can do the high school proficiency exam, which I think is actually only a 7th grade level. And so then, it goes back out. So then we don't go. And then it blows up. So then we start going. So eventually, I guess, I don't know. I think I wasn't the greatest at paying attention. I mean, I was more interested in hanging out with my friends, but I used to be, I'm terrible at doing tests now, but I used to be very good at doing tests. So like, especially when I'm like doing math tests, like, I may not have paid very good attention in my algebra 2, but somehow when I'm looking at it, to me, it looks like, logic. So I just have to figure out logically where things go. And I actually passed everything I needed to be considered done with school. I don't
Okay,
know
so you
how.
got like a GED.
No, I
thing.
didn't. So I was
Oh,
supposed to be issued, I guess, a diploma or something. And the teacher asked if I was going to come to the graduation. And I said, no. He goes, I didn't think you were, but I figured to ask. And I guess because I never showed up, they didn't give me my diploma.
oh, I got it. I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as Scientology concerned, you had tested out of the education requirement.
Pretty much, yeah. I couldn't
Yeah,
tell you
okay.
today that I know any of it. And they didn't require much of me. I'm not gonna lie. It's not like you need to have good grades on all subjects. It was just reading, writing, and math.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you start working at Bridge at 1991. What year did you leave the Sea Org?
09, if I remember correctly.
So 18 years. 18 years you were in the Sea Org.
Okay. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I for some reason I think in my head 17 years, but yeah, so maybe it was somewhere thereabouts, give or take.
That's a lot of years. Those are key years. I mean, that's 15 to what, 33, 32?
Yeah, I think I was either 31 or 32. So something about that whole time period is very fuzzy for me. Big surprise. It was not easy to get
That's
out
a
of
lot
there,
of
but
years.
anyways,
That is a lot of
it
years.
was.
Were you at Bridge the whole time?
I was the whole time.
That's incredible.
I know.
Now, who was the main recruiter for Bridge during your years, or recruiters?
Brandon Faust. Oh, okay. Well, first it was Gavin, and Nick was the cope-off until he got busted. And so then it was just Gavin. And then Gavin trained Brandon, and Brandon was it for a long time. And so when I became the Has, Brandon was it. And then eventually they moved Brandon to senior HCO pack to be like the recruiter for the whole base, or help everyone learn how to recruit or some crap. So they gave me a girl who had never actually recruited in her entire life. So I had recruited before. It's just they were trying to keep me a lot on the personnel side of things, because the whole manufacturing thing was supposed to be like a COB project, whatever. So they really couldn't have me fleeing around. They really needed me focused on getting the people in there, getting the org boards done and the training and all that good shit. And so, but then it was like, now no one's recruiting, so you're gonna have to go do it. So I started recruiting, and then also we had the staff requirements. So then that's, I started touring a lot to get people's staff experience. And then I was doing a lot of personnel stuff with, CC and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. So then I basically became the main recruiter. So if I recruit you, I'm sorry. Hard stop. Just sorry. I shouldn't have brought you in. Probably.
I found
biggest
something else
regret.
out this past weekend, or was reminded of it at least, that Brandon Faust's mother, Sherry, was running the Mace Kingsley Ranch in New Mexico.
Yes, she was.
Where all the naughty Scientology kids would be sent.
Yep.
And Brandon would just, because his mom was running the place, Brandon would use that ranch as a recruiting pool for the Sea Org.
I don't remember him getting a ton of people from there, because a lot of the people there were already a bit on the rebellious end of things. He was big on recruiting from Delphi, Diane Key's school, Carroll Academy. Like definitely hit up the Scientology schools a lot.
So he may not have had a lot of success at Mace Kingsley, but my
he did get his brothers from there.
Yeah, his brother, his two brothers were at the Mace Kingsley school, and partially because his mom was there, so there was nowhere else for them to go. But my stepbrother, Jordan, I was reminded this weekend, was at Mace Kingsley for a year. And that brand, and he told me about the typical Brandon Faust style, the world is ending recruit interview. This is the one brief breath in eternity to save the planet. And my stepbrother was still like, yeah, there's no chance I'm signing this contract. So
yeah, it's the one
I
they
don't
call
doubt
the
that he
ruin
didn't have a lot of
briefing.
success. The ruin briefing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
then
as
he
you and I
created
were
this one
chatting,
called the whole track briefing. That thing was a
oh,
fucking piece of work, man. I couldn't even deliver it to people because I hated it that much. But a lot of people were super into it, like super into it. And so whoever was
what was
usually
the
on
essence of
project
it?
with me, it's basically, so you have this briefing that's sitting there full of conspiracy theories, right? About the whole end of the world, right? Deadline Earth, 30 years, all this crap. The only reason it hasn't happened yet is because of all the great things Scientology is doing. But it's like quotes a lot of stuff from 1984, which I need to say that the Sea Org is probably the most 1984-esque place ever. Anyway, so back to the story. But anyways, it goes into all these different things, and where L. Ron Hubbard talks about the government and the bankers and blah, blah, blah. And they got all these like magazine articles, newspaper articles, whatever, just to ruin the shit out of the person to think the whole place is like doomed and gonna die unless you go and help. And then you have the whole track briefing where then he's got all these excerpts from L. Ron Hubbard lectures where it's talking about like the bigger picture and going to target 2. And um, you know, he even has a copy of the LRH written, the motto of this year, we come back. Okay, so the
Yeah.
original handwritten one says we've come back, but he scratched out the VE. So that's in
Oh my
there.
goodness.
And this just sucks people in because everyone's like, oh my God, the whole big, broad galaxy, universes of all universes, we are the only hope and we've come back. It's like a mind fuck. So I wouldn't do that part of the briefing because I just feel like that's way too much playing with somebody's head. So I wouldn't do that part, but people are real into that kind of stuff. It's kind of funky.
Like this really worked on a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you still have to close a person. So it definitely gets the person in the mindset, especially after the first one, it gets the person in the mindset that something does need to be done, but they still have like, who wants to go dedicate 1 billion years? Who wants to work, 24 hours a day kind of thing? Like nobody. And so you still have to kind of convince the person to do it. It's just like a bit of it's interesting enough too. It keeps the person there. And it does create a bit of that ruin about the fourth dynamic. And puts the
And
Sea
for the
Org there
viewers,
as the solution.
the fourth dynamic is all humankind.
Yes. All of us peoples.
So, as we've been chatting over the last many months, there's one thing you said to me that like really, really stuck out, which was, it has to do with Miriam Francis and her father and what Scientology knew about what Miriam's father did to her, what they knew exactly, who knew it, how broadly it was known. And you told me that as the Has Bridge, you were over all the personnel assignments, especially people that were on clearances to be posted at Bridge. What was your experience with management trying to post Miriam's father at Bridge?
Okay, yeah. God, and I hate this so much for her, and I don't know if I saw everything because I did listen to like a podcast or two of hers, and it just seems a bit more extensive than what I remember. But I do very specifically remember when it's what the senior personnel office. They're basically this kind of unit in the Sea Org that's responsible for getting people to the higher level orgs from like basically gold and higher. And so they had him because he was at gold. So they had him as a resource, or they call it a coin. I don't even know where that comes from. But anyways, so they had him to use to replace somebody to get into international management. And so they came to me because Bridge already had higher qualifications. So it made it easier to move people into like gold and higher because it was, less qualifications to get people through. And so I was presented with his information, and it was in the personnel file. They have to document, like, basically why he's not qualified for that level anymore. And they have to then show all of the, like, handlings that they do with somebody in order to say, okay, whatever that thing was is handled. It's not going to come up anymore. And I was reading it, and it was tabbed. So I opened it up to see what it was. And it was, it's just some heinous stuff he had done when she was a child. And, in the Sea Org, and especially growing up in the whole thing, there's no such thing as calling law enforcement. It actually doesn't even register with you. It doesn't even occur to you to do something like that, because you just don't know to do it. You've been told that it's an evil, horrible thing to do, and you're going to condemn somebody for the rest of their existence if you call law enforcement on them. And you just think the only way to fix it is with Scientology. And I remember reading it and thinking, fuck no, this guy's not going to be anywhere near me. Like, absolutely not. And I noticed in there that there had been an earlier incident. They applied Scientology, and then he did it again. And then they've done some correction to the Scientology he did. And then they were trying to tell me that this is a fixed situation. And I said, well, how do you figure? Because he had Scientology in between, and he did it again. Because I'm in big arguments with these people, because right now I am going against command intention. I am stopping the expansion of Scientology by stopping people from going in, all that crap. And so I was like, first of all, I promote more people than anyone else on this base, or probably all bases. So let's get off that one. And no, he's not coming to my org. And we were fighting about it and fighting about it. And finally just said, I will never be able to look at him the same as I do any other staff member. I will not treat him the same. I just won't even be able to do it. He is always going to be this person to me. It is not fair to him. That's the way I had to word it to get them to leave me alone. And so they finally stopped. And then I was told I had to do a metered ethics interview for my counterintention. And then, they were kind of like looking at what to do with me and whatever, because I wouldn't budge. I just wouldn't stop saying no. And then finally, after a couple weeks of all that bullshit, someone from CMO came and said, you were right to reject him. And so I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So like that example, and I know, people listening to us, even hearing that example, they don't they can't necessarily visualize all the levels of personnel management and levels of management that would have to be aware of what he did in order for all of that information to be in his files, or the fact that all that information was in his files, how that would result in so many people in so many different levels of organizations knowing what he did. And that there's no question that everyone on international clearance lines knew what he did. Everyone involved in senior HCO int, senior HCO cont, and HCO bridge knew what he did. Everyone, all of the messengers, all of the CMO involved in any of these personnel evolutions knew what he did. And it is not a thing in Scientology to protect children from predators. Like,
no,
it just doesn't exist.
It's not. It's actually, with all honesty, it's more speaking out publicly against the organization or what they feel is against them is a more punishable offense than committing SA on a child. And I know that for a fact. And, it's really fucked up on, like, in every way. I just know, I have my own story, and then I know other girls who had things, and, it just, no, they think that, like, even my own parents think that the right way to fix somebody is Scientology. I'm like, well, then go fix them in fucking jail. Like, lock them the fuck up,
Right.
But
Yeah, go audit them while they're in jail.
that's what I fucking said. And they're like, well, maybe if they're repeated. I said, no, one fucking time is enough. They can go to jail. And if you want to audit them there, go the fuck ahead. But like, they can have the same consequence as the rest of the world. So if someone else goes to jail for it, then they go to jail for it. Period.
It is so
Fucked up.
crazy. What's your opinion on this? Because I know the viewership has a divided opinion on whether, is this a sincerely held belief that Scientologists really, really have, or is it a convenient excuse to protect predators? This whole, but they'll never be fixed if you send them to jail. Like, just your own personal experience. I tend to believe Scientologists do truly believe these things, but I'm wondering if at the top, I'm wondering if at the very, very top, if they truly believe it, or if they're just like, this is a great way to keep all of our dirt from being exposed.
So I think their first concern is PR. They're supposed to be this well-rounded, kind of highly ethical organization, and they promote that that's what they make people into. And I think that from a PR perspective, if they're turning out or showing up with these like rapists and pedophiles, it just looks really shitty. Even though they would actually look better if they just turn them all over to law enforcement. They'd be like, everyone would be like, oh my God, this church has a zero tolerance for this stuff. But they don't see it that way. They see it as harmful to them. So that's their first concern. And I think deep down, they do believe that Scientology technology is the only way to fix that person, because it's, to them, it's just aberrative behavior, and that gets handled by getting rid of the engrams or the body theta engrams, whatever. Engrams nonetheless.
It just occurred to me what the big contradiction here is on this. They don't make the same excuse for other people who they declare and expel.
Right.
When someone is talking mad shit about David Miscavige to other Scientologists, they don't go, we can fix him by applying Scientology. They're like, declare an expulsion, out of here, bye. But if you're molesting kids, they're like, but we can fix him. But why do they make that excuse for the worst of the people, but they don't use the same excuse for the others?
Well, it's because it's the way LRH wrote it. So if you look at the like offenses and penalties, and you go through all the, you know, misdemeanors, crimes, and high crimes, the speaking out against the organization, attacking it, whatever, it's in the high crime category, if I remember correctly. And there is no listing of any sexual perversions is not on there. That's a tone scale thing, not a crime thing. So it's a case thing, it's not an ethics criminal thing. It's a case thing.
I know what you're saying, and that's a really good point. But it's one of these things where it's ambiguous enough in policy that they could do whatever the hell they want. Because the truth is, buried in the ethics codes is something that simply says breaking the laws of the land. You know, like right? Or putting Scientology or Scientologists at risk is certainly a high crime, right?
And it's like, it's only a risk if somebody goes and leaks it, you see? So that's where it's warped and kind of fucked up. And it's kind of how you interpret it, or how you can kind of twist it and make it sort of work to suit your interest, you know, their interest.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So. I commented recently that it's a little strange that for everyone who speaks out, former staff members, former Sea Org members, we don't hear from a ton of people who are ethics officers or who were over ethics officers, like being the Durian or being the Has. Yeah. We don't hear from a lot of HCO ethics staff.
Yeah.
And those people should have the best. So one thing I want to know from the viewpoint, from the perspective of someone who spent, now I know you said you were at Bridge for like 17 years, but how long were you in HCO Bridge?
13.
Okay. So as someone who spent 13 years in HCO.
Maybe 12.
Okay, 12. We'll go with 12. When you hear what was done to Danny Masterson's victims for coming forward, how they were dealt with by ethics and HCO and OSA, how CC, HCO, and AOHCO and OSA essentially, I'm going to say, covered up for Danny. I know a Scientologist would take issue with that characterization, but covering up for him by trying to keep it quiet, keep it contained, punish people for involving police, blame and shame the victims until they acquiesced and were under control. As a former HCO person, do you hear all that and go, totally par for the course for Scientology? Or do you go, man, that's fucked up even for Scientology? Like, where do you come down on it?
I think that's very fucked up. Like, so, and maybe it's because my story is a little bit different, but like for me, when all that was going on, I just like, it was like rage just starts boiling and boiling, because I was like, how can those motherfuckers still be doing this? They were doing it when I was 6 and 7 years old, and here I am now, you know, however many years later, 40 years later, 37 years later, and it's like they're still fucking doing that. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, how do they not see, like, the moment this went, like, I mean, okay, aside from the fact that whatever was covered up for years, but as soon as it was going to court stuff, they should have been like, here's everything. Here's his check KRs. Here's, session KRs. Here's the ethics handlings we try to do with this fucker. You know what? Here, lock him the fuck up. That's what they should have done. And they would have actually, since they're always so worried about their fucking PR, they would have come out ahead and then stopped doing that shit. But the fact that they sat there and fought and fought and fought, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? See, it was different for me. I didn't deal with public. So someone do that in the Sea Org, they're going to the RPF. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. They're gone. They're going to the little concentration camp and being, which is maybe probably worse than jail, but it probably is. I'd rather go to jail with RPF, honestly. It's just, it's so like, I think that's a lot of what was really got, like, I don't know. It's probably what really pushed me to the point of like speaking out, because I just couldn't believe that after all these years, they're still doing it. They're still like harboring these people. They're still making excuses for them. They're still trying to whatever, and like I was talking to somebody, I don't even remember who it was, and they were like, OSA and all them are gonna be all fucking pissed off about what you're doing. I said, well, I'll make them a deal then. They go and turn over every single rapist and every single fucking pedophile, and I will shut my channel down. I'll do it if they actually do it.
I'll do it with you. They turn over every rapist and every pedophile. I'll shut the channel down. All of
them. Every single one of them. I will close my damn channel. I will stop saying.
So it's funny because you said that your response was that was really screwed up, but it sounds like you felt that way largely in part because it is par for the course. Like, you couldn't believe they were still doing the stuff they were already doing back when you were 6, 7 years old. Like,
yeah.
This aspect of
blame game, and making the fucking person who it happened to feel like a piece of shit for it fucking happening. It's like, it just makes me so fucking angry, and that's like, and every other emotion that comes with it. But like I said in that fucking video, it's like that they can take these people and just tell them that, like, well, maybe you shouldn't be so flirty, or maybe you shouldn't be such a slut, or, or like, well, what did you do to pull that in? It's like, are you fucking kidding me? The dude is just a fucking warped pervert. I didn't do shit to them. I didn't, whatever. But it was so introverting, especially like when we were really young. So I know how those women felt. I know deeply how they felt. And it is, I don't even think there's words for it, really. And I just can't believe that the organization still does it. It's unacceptable.
It's one of the reasons they've got all these live streamer protesters going on at many locations around the country and the world. And I started doing it in downtown Clearwater, mainly because it started to occur to me that I might actually be afraid to do it. And I was like, go do it and see what there is to be afraid of. And I was like, what am I going to say to these people? What am I going to ask them? And I ended up settling on just asking them about Danny Masterson. And my goal was to find a single Scientologist who could express some outrage at not only what Danny had done, but at Osa's role in covering it up and the fact that he's not been declared and expelled publicly. I've not been able to find a single Scientologist to express any outrage at all with a rapist, a convicted violent serial rapist, not being publicly declared and expelled. Not a single one. And
there's too much self-policing.
It must be. It must be. Maybe they're afraid to say it to me because I say to them, because some of these people I recognize don't know who I am. I'll be like, I'll tell you what, when I was in the Sea Org and when I was in Scientology, if I heard that a guy like this had done something like this and it had been covered up and he wasn't declared, I'd be furious.
Like, seriously, I don't get why people, it just, it's so aggravating that, I don't even have words for like how fucking stupid and fucked up it is. It's like, this is what I had to tell somebody. I said, imagine if this happened to your fucking daughter. I said, you know where your ass would be? Fucking jail because of what you would have done to that person. End of story. I said, look at it through those eyes. My parents, I guess it doesn't really matter because, I was raised by the daycare. So less of an attachment.
There's a question here for you. Rusty says, did you know Lucky P, a girl about your age? She was friends with Carly Sarkovich. Scientology is a small world.
Yes. Lucky Porter. She was Jeff Porter's daughter.
The only time I hear stories of this person did she go to INT? Because I never knew.
Yeah.
Did she become Lucky Story?
Yes, that's her. She got married to Nathan Story. Yeah.
Who names their daughter Lucky?
She was a genuinely nice person. I didn't have to ever work with her in post, but like when we were in the cadet org and the CEO and everything, she was actually just a very nice girl. Honestly.
And did she turn into some sort of a Scientology witch? Like, I don't know what post she was ever on. Was she like at Golden Era Productions or something? CMO?
So, no, she was a CMO. And so I don't know because we were always friends. So a lot of my friends from the CEO and the cadet org, even though they went up lines and were higher than me, most of us just remained friends still. So we only talked to each other at a friend level. So I didn't know her in any other way than somebody who was really nice.
Let's see. Oh, I missed some of these other questions here for you. Bridge Sea Org members do not qualify as volunteers and are paid differently. Could you explain how Bridge Sea Org pay for food and housing? So
it started that way. So originally we were paid what the minimum wage was at the time for a certain number of hours that obviously we worked more than, but it was, I forget what it was at the time, maybe $3.75 or something like that. And then, so, after all the taxes and everything, you might end up with, when you're on what they call product one, so that's the first initial round of courses you're doing when you arrive in the Sea Org, and you're supposed to study them more. So that actually gives them a good excuse to pay even less. And then when you're done with that, it kind of goes up to a few more hours or whatever. But so once you get that money, so say you had $175 after taxes or something like that, you would need to pay for your room board. Like, so you pay for your meals, you pay for that, but we were expected to wear what they called Uniform K, which was business clothes. So we had to buy those. We had to dry clean those. If we had any medical things, dental things, needed glasses, we had to pay for all of that. If we needed vitamins or whatever, we paid for that. So we were expected to pay for everything, and no, we did not get paid every fucking week. So, and then base crew at the time, they were too full. So they were trying to send us to go find apartments for, a few $100 a month, which is not possible in Los Angeles. So a lot of it, like 5 of us girls one time found her mother was rented us the bottom level of a house that we turned into something that the 5 of us could kind of be in because that's what we could afford together. But yeah, we had lots of periods of no pay. So the bills stacked up. Like, at one point was in a car accident. I was a passenger, but still I ended up having to go to the hospital. And so between my ambulance and the hospital visit and all that, I mean, I was deeply in debt. Collection agencies and everything calling me to get money. And you only have what you have. And so, then every now and then it would become the big flap, because if we didn't get paid, that affected the tax exempt status, because we were only halfway for profit and halfway not. So it would become a thing. So then what they would do is they would go, okay, good. So we're going to pay everyone back their back pay, but here's how it's going to go. So the first thing you do is you have to show them your list of bills. And so you pay back like base crew and whoever else for the fucking rice and beans, because they wouldn't feed you normal food if you weren't paying. And so you pay back all that stuff, and then any medical bills and everything like that you pay. And then whatever you have left, they'll let you have $50 of it, and you have to turn around and either donate it to like one of the book campaigns or buy some materials or something, so the money goes back into the organization. And that's kind of the cycle that we would go through pretty frequently. So all of us were getting a bit sick of this, and we would get accused of being like PTS to the middle class and externally influenced, and we would get interrogatories all the time, and there's always a head
Money
on a pike.
motivated.
Yeah, and so we were all just like, just pay us $50 freaking dollars, and like, let's be done with it. Plus we had medical bills. I mean, you need a pair of glasses, that could be $300 and something. So then you have to, because you have to pay for everything else, you probably can't pay for that for probably like 4 or 5 weeks, or just little things like that. It sounded so much more glamorous than it ended up being in the real life. But finally, so the solution was to create Galaxy Press and get fiction out of bridge. And that turned into being probably one of the worst personnel things I think I've ever worked on outside of the manufacturing thing. It might have actually been worse. It was so horrendous, because they had to be qualified to be in the ASI building. And I don't know, there was something about it that everyone was already pissed off because of how PTS of the middle class. So every time something didn't go right, we were blamed for not wanting to get it done, because we wanted to keep getting the supposed money that we were just turning around giving back anyway. So I don't know what they were talking about. Finally, they got the fuck out of our door and opened. And we went on to regular Sea Org, pay, uniforms, all that other bullshit.
So they said that you guys were counterintention to the Galaxy Press spinoff because you wanted to keep making that fat minimum wage money.
Yeah, all of it that we rarely saw, but yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Wow.
I mean, we go through periods where all of a sudden we get paid for 4 or 5 weeks in a row, and it's like amazing. We're like, oh, we're doing so great. And then all of a sudden we don't get paid.
Do I recall correctly that Brian Moxon ended up being the ED of the Galaxy Press spinoff?
Has.
Oh, he was the Has.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So he was my INR, and I moved him over there.
So Brian Moxon ended up being the Has of Galaxy Press. And then later he leaves the Sea Org and he makes a pretty good living selling pots and pans at Costco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would go to the fairs and stuff.
Yeah. He might have moved on to something else. But imagine saving the world one day, selling items at Costco the next day.
Like the rest of us.
But I heard he made a ton of money doing it, though. Like, who knew that Brian Moxon was good at sales?
It's high end. It's like high end cookware stuff. Yeah, it's these whole sets are like expensive ass things. So I get it. He made a lot of money.
Amber Vanass says, I was one of the cadets that helped renovate the Pack Ranch.
Yeah, you should tell stories about some of that, because that was yeah. We would go up sometimes on weekends to help.
Anon says, Brandon Faust told me the world was going to end in 2000, according to LRH.
30 years from the time it was written. Deadline Earth.
Okay, so this next one is from Mike Brown, and I really wondered what he meant by it. And then he clarified, but here's what he wrote first. Small Cups World. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Mike.
I thought that was very inappropriate and offensive, Mike Brown. And then he said,
I mean, I don't got a lot going on up there, but I'm used to that now.
He meant
I barely fit a bee.
He meant small cult world. Hi, Jenny.
Yeah. Mike and I were in the cadet org at the same time. He was one of the kids who went to the Int Ranch, but he was at least a couple
Oh,
of years when I was there. Yeah. He was
wow.
actually a very
See,
nice kid there.
he was, well, he's a nice kid now, too.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure that would never change. Sometimes I would look at him back then and I was always like, he just stood out because the rest of us were kind of like, sometimes we were really nice and sometimes we were total assholes, but he was very consistently nice. I didn't understand how he was able to do that.
So let's fast forward a little bit. Well, also, so you were married to someone I've spoken about a lot on my channel, Jono REECE. I don't know that there's much we want to talk about Jono REECE right now. Is there anything just on the subject of your experience being with Jono in the Sea Org that's worth commenting on or in any
Well,
way?
he said I was chronically lower toned than him, which is why our marriage wasn't going to work. And then he believed Jessica Feshback when she said I was a no case gain when I had done no auditing except for half a purif.
Oh, Jono told you that you were chronically lower toned than he was.
Yeah.
Now
Oh my
that's a
God, look at me
Scientology
speaking
insult.
out now. I guess he's right. Asshole. That wasn't
It's been a
introverting
little
from my
while.
husband.
Yeah. And then, okay, so who says you were, who told you or who told Jono that you were a no gain case?
Jessica Feshback, Rodriguez, Palo, whichever the names you want to use, Davies.
Okay, you want to talk about a weird marriage. What was Jessica Feshback doing marrying Andres Rodriguez?
It was clout.
It wasn't for money. It wasn't for looks.
It's clout. He came in as the big fucking dog, you know, like he was this awesome, amazing person who came to PAC and he was all flag trained and he was a senior CS and like he was going to get like the tech perfect on the base and, you know, everyone looked up to him and, you know, she magnetizes to that kind of shit.
I guess different strokes for different folks. Because I'll tell you, I knew Andres Rodriguez when he was still a petty officer, first class, training at Flag as an out-org trainee from CLO Latam, training to be the senior CS Latam. Oh. And he was full of life and energy and vitality. And he was funny and he was dynamic. And when I got to PAC, and he was already an ensign, and he was like the senior CS chief West US, or he was senior CS West US. Yeah. And I ran into him and I'm like, I don't recognize this guy. This is a hollow shell of a beaten down man who's propped up as some sort of a figurehead that people are supposed to look up to. This is a man who realizes he cannot control anything. He cannot influence anything. He's just become a yes man. There's nothing behind the eyes anymore. There's no vitality. There's no excitement. There's no nothing. I could tell he had been beaten into submission by RTC, that he was just a nothing. He meant nothing. He was nothing. He was no one. He was only there to do exactly what RTC told him to do and nothing else. And so it's crazy to me that whatever he was or whoever he was by the time he got to PAC, it's crazy to me that someone like Jessica would be like, oh, my hero. I'm like, that was a shell of a man. I don't know. No, maybe he was different when he got there. I don't know how long he was there by the time I got there.
It was because when he came in, he was like the shit. Like, I mean, he was like the star of the base, you know? I mean, he was just the big thing. And, you know, and she just magnetizes to that kind of stuff. She was married to Frederick at the time. And, you know, she just like drop kicked him and like, we're not working out. And he goes, what are you talking about? Like, we've been fine. And all of a sudden their marriage, like they lived in the connecting room to us. And so, you know, so we hung out with them all the time and it was fine. Like, yes,
Frederick and Jessica or Andreas and Jessica?
Frederick and Jessica.
Oh, by the way, I don't know who Frederick is, but I just want to know which one you were talking about.
Frederick Palo. He was a nice man, very super nice guy. He's not in the Sea Org anymore, but yeah, like he loved her. They had their spats just like the rest of us do, but for the most part, they got along great and we all had fun like all the time or whatever. And then all of a sudden it was like everything about it was bad. And, you know, so she pushed the divorce through despite him not wanting to. And and then she just beeline straight at him, at Andreas. I mean, my experience with
Interesting.
Andreas wasn't bad. I guess maybe other people have bad experiences with him, but like, you know, he actually kind of helped a couple times, you know, like one time I said, one time somebody was like just harping on me for something and like, you know, this is not how CLB would handle it and da 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 da, you know, whatever. And I said, well, for starters, I'm not as dedicated as CLB, so I wouldn't be handling it like him. And so then they're trying to RB me, you know, on this, and it's not going anywhere because I'm the one who said it. Anyways, it's just bogging down, and they just aren't going to let me go. And finally, someone talks to him on how to like unbug this RB that's not going anywhere. And finally, he looks at it, he goes, "That's not an enemy line. She isn't as dedicated as him." And he's like, "She should just go back to post." I was like, bye. There was another similar thing like that he kind of got me out of as well. I was like, fuck.
That is a funny story and a perfect example of how so many people in the Sea Org just cannot think. The enemy line would be if you said COB wasn't as dedicated as you.
Yes.
So stupid.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, well, I mean, I'm not, but
could you, them trying to roll you back, on where you got the idea that you weren't as dedicated as COB. You're like, I'm the one. It's my idea. No. Tell us, where did you get the idea from? Where did it come from?
I'm like, believe me, put us side by side. You will see. I am not at his level of fanaticalness. You know, it's just, I'm just not.
For the people in the chat, I've only mentioned rollbacks a few times. It's this weird procedure in Scientology where instead of just getting a person in trouble for something they've said that's bad, it's basically an interrogation process to find out who was the source, who was the original source of this negative idea or this negative thing that's being passed around. And for some reason, the process of doing a rollback is confidential, which never made any sense at all. But Sea Org members who would get used to this procedure just knew that the best way to get someone into trouble would be to roll back something to them. So if someone was, if someone was spreading around this rumor that, oh, COB is not as dedicated as everyone says, they would try to roll it back to find out not who all said it, but who was the original person to ever say it and be the source of the idea. So if you just have someone you don't like, you just roll it back to the person you don't like. Oh yeah, this person said it. Yeah.
Well, because whoever it rolls back to, like the ultimate person, is supposed to be an SP or have evil purposes.
That's right.
You know, it's a pretty bad thing. You know, that's right up there with being called no case gain. I mean, like, you literally, when you get told you're no case gain, you are beyond help. You are basically the most despicable thing on planet Earth, because even a bum can be helped before you can be helped. Like, there is no hope for you. It's like the most, especially when you spend your whole life in there, is probably the most depressing and introverting thing that you can be told. You know, you're basically worse than an SP.
I found out recently that my PC folder said that I was a no gain case. And it's funny because you and I are in a similar situation where we basically had no real auditing. We only had correction lists and sec checks and int rundowns and list verification incorrect and quad roots and overts and nothing PTS that was handlings. Like a lot PTS handlings up the ass. So lots of metered auditing actions, but no like actual bridge. So like the only actual bridge I ever completed was the purification rundown. Honestly, it's the only step on the bridge I ever actually completed.
Me too. And I was told it was an OP and that I'm not actually done.
So even your purif was messed up. You didn't even do that right.
Right. Apparently.
I guess you just didn't take enough niacin. It's about fault. Or you weren't wearing the right shorts. They have new standard purif shorts.
That's so ridiculous.
So, but like, I think it might be crazy for some people to hear that you were in the Sea Org at an international org level, at an executive level for 17 or 18 years and never actually did any Scientology bridge auditing other than the purif. And they even told you that your purif was messed up and that didn't count.
Well, when I was also 10, let me correct the record here, but when I was 10, somebody did some student CCHs on me. I don't even remember what that stands for, but let me tell you, the absolute most annoying processing I've ever done in my entire life.
It stands for communication, control, and havingness. But just because they did some of the CCHs on you doesn't mean you finished like the objectives level on the bridge or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So no, I was definitely considered to be OP purif.
Right. And you were a no case gain, but also holding an executive level in a major Scientology organization.
I was like, and that's what I asked him. I said, then why am I still on post?
Right. Oh, that's right. That's why we started talking about Jessica, because Jessica Feshback is the one who told your husband that Jenny's no case gain. And was that because was she trying to?
I saw it.
Was she trying to get him to divorce you? Like, why did that even come up?
So yeah, for a little bit there, they had a little bit of something, I guess. At least that's what he ended up telling me, that she, like what they call third party, like where she basically pointed out to him that I was much lower tone than him, and that's why we don't work. And I guess that they are a little more on the same level, and then the whole no case game thing.
She was trying to get with Jono?
I don't know if it was that she was trying to get with him, or she just didn't want him with somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, she's hard to figure out because she bounces from person to person. She's not, I would say that that area of her life is not probably her most straightforward.
Are you saying she works for H-Osa?
Oh my God. Oh, wow.
H-Osa got me when I was in LA. H-Osa came after me.
And you didn't jump all over that?
At least her trying to get with Jono makes sense, because Jono was a good looking dude and he was an officer. I think every girl on the base had a crush on Jono.
That's funny. And it's just like, until stuff like that started happening, everyone always said that we were such a good couple, that we got along so great, that, we were like, relationship goals, kind of thing. Hashtag. But then that shit started, and then, then he bought into the no case game thing. And actually it was his mom who finally just said, Jono, she's had no auditing. There's no way to say she's not case gain. She's not had any. And then he was like, oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. Okay, we need to get her going in session. I'm like, motherfucker, you work over the staff enhancement thing. And your solution was to go, we should get a divorce because you're a piece of shit and downtown and no case gain, instead of just getting me up the bridge, because apparently going up the bridge is what fixes your tone level, right? And I was like, you are in the position where you could have done something about it if you really felt that way about me. And then you chose not to. And then he was like, no, you're right. Okay. Then he's tries to go like, balls to the wall, try to get me in session, but too late. By that time, I was already on my death schedule, like never sleeping. So kind of never happened.
It is crazy to think that Jono was in charge of all of the staff members getting auditing, and someone was able to just come and whisper in his ear and get him to think bad things about you. Like, it's just, there's so much contradiction in, well, all these stories, but I guess that's the nature of being in a cult.
But that was actually one of the first things that made me think that even somebody as trained as he was, because he was also a class 4 auditor and he was clear, and that he didn't think the technology would work for me. So then I was like, wow. So even people who are actually really trained, him, Jessica, and whoever else, think that it doesn't actually always work. And it made me, that was probably where I first started questioning the workability of it, because if these people who are so trained didn't think that it would necessarily work in every situation, then I was like, what the fuck? Like, what's happening? You know, I don't know. Like, it made me start to really start thinking about that.
I can totally see that. What about when you would observe things like this? Someone like Jono, who's well trained. Now, some people will argue class 4 is not that much trained. It doesn't matter. It's plenty trained. And especially when it's your job to be in charge of all that stuff, and you're seeing it all, you know, every minute of the day. When you see someone like Jono, who had, I think, I'll say things and then you correct me if I'm mischaracterizing. As a Sea Org member who worked on L. Ron Hubbard Way, I always looked at Jono as someone who's a very ethical, dedicated, true believing Sea Org member, on the rails, as they would say. And then he gets sent on this special project to Albany for the Ideal Org project, working pretty much directly, answering almost directly to David Miscavige. And he totally explodes. He blows up. What is he? He cheats with some, I don't know, some public Scientologists or some Sea Org members. Like he like cheats with 2 different people. And it's like everything goes to hell. And then does things like that make you question the workability of at that time, question the workability of the tech? Or do you just go, well, everyone is susceptible to their overts and the overt withhold sequence and all that stuff?
I think what was happening is, by that time, I was already a few years deep into the whole manufacturing thing. Like, so prior to the basics was the building of manufacturing and the manning it up. So we took it from this little tiny thing to a $41 million facility, and from 4 people to 126. And so I was like burning both ends all the time. I mean, literally, a Scientology doctor diagnosed me with sleep deprivation because I was having all these things starting to happen to me. And she's like, you're not ever giving your body a chance to regenerate. That's why you're passing out. That's why you're breaking out into rashes. That's why you're losing bone mass. Like, your body's just shutting down because you won't let it, whatever. And anyway, so that was my mindset. I'm already getting foggy. I already have like disagreements coming out my ass. I was begging for a disagreement remedy. I was mad as fuck at Jono for going because he was given the option. It wasn't like an ordered thing. He wanted to do it because he wanted it on his production record. And Edian was even, the Hasbridge right now is not going anywhere. Not a good idea to send her husband somewhere. Jono said, I want to go. So fucker went. And, so by then I'm like, I can't even tell you the level of exhaustion I felt and like the amount of numbness that I had at that point of my life. I was like, in my mind, I was like, I just need to get this project done and fucking be done with it. That's it. And so I saw he came for cramming, to ITO for cramming, the International Training Org for Correction. And so we were, spending a little bit of time together. And, like when you're with someone long enough, you just know when something's off and weird. So I kind of started asking him about it. And, he didn't really allude to anything. He didn't really admit to anything. He didn't really cough anything. And I'm being somewhat careful too, because I don't want to accuse him of something. And I also, I don't know. I felt like also our relationship was a personal thing. I just didn't think it was the business of the Sea Org. So I didn't want to get it so riled up that it became the business of the Sea Org. And then he left again. He went back there. And the girl he's with now actually told him a bunch of lies about me. I found out about it later, whatever. So they ended up sleeping together. She got pregnant, whatever. That happened. So, I don't know that disillusioned me. I think more what did it for me was when he was more or less had decided that tech wouldn't help me. He wouldn't save me, you know, and I just was
Mm.
kind of like, even he doesn't think it's real. Even he, there's some aspect of it that even he, having gone through the whole RPF with all of that auditing that they do there and being clear and training, and somehow he's still, some part of him must not believe. So I don't know, you know, it was just like, that was probably the real like clincher for me. And that's,
That's incredible.
yeah.
That
And I'm not
is
trying to shit all over Jono.
incredible.
Believe me, he was actually a nice person, just generally. He was a nice person. He was a hard worker. He really did usually want the best for the area that he was working in. But he also, like, when he was close with certain people, like, he could be a little bit wishy-washy. Do you know what I mean? He can go with whatever way the wind blows, where for me, I'm very like, I base my opinion on an experience that I've experienced. And then if I know something, I know something, I don't bend, you know, or if someone says something, I have no experience with it, I'm just kind of like, I don't really know about that. So can't really say.
Yeah.
He's more flighty.
Yeah. I don't, you know, when we talk about Sea Org members, fucking up or messing up or doing things that are bad for Sea Org members, it's almost fun to talk about because it's bad for Sea Org members. But I don't even have negative opinions about Jono. Like even if Jono did all that stuff in Albany that I know he did, I mean, that doesn't make me go, oh, Jono's a bad guy. No, Jono's a normal guy. The Sea Org has this crazy idea of what it means to be good. And no Sea Org members ever live up to it anyway. So I don't know what the point is of them constantly having this fake idea of what it means to be good.
Yeah, and let's be honest, he was put on the RPF when he was 15. Like,
there's
no way that doesn't do some damage to you. And he was on it
but
for
you
like
remember what it was for?
5 or 6 years. Yeah, fucking a girl.
He was 15 and he slept with another underage, like 2 underage people slept with each other, and they went to the prison rehabilitation camp for how many years was Jono on it?
As children. He was there for 6 years.
6, from 15 to 21. That is like some of the most developmental years.
Yeah.
And he's on in a prison camp for having slept with someone his own age.
Yeah. It's pretty awful. Like,
yeah,
it'll fuck you up.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine like those young years and you aren't even allowed to talk to anyone? Like, you're running everywhere you go. You have to wear black and colored armbands, and you have to dive deep into your mind or fake mind or whatever, and you sit there looking for evil purposes of like blowing up planets and shit, and like having all that on you when you're so young. Like, there's no way that's okay, you know. I always felt bad for him. I mean, I don't know.
And the people who are in this situation are made to feel that they are so irredeemable, almost completely irredeemable, but so close to being completely irredeemable that they are lucky to be allowed to be on that program so that they might one day become a normal, good Sea Org member again. Just imagine what that does to your head.
They do consider that because when you go out 2D, you're supposed to be beached. That's what they say, right? So it's an instant like offload. But if you have some kind of a production record and they're actually just desperate to keep people, they will send you there, and you're lucky to have that opportunity. But they do harbor also people who should go to jail there. I'm just saying. Like,
so check this out. Rosalind says, so look, this is one of these contradictions. So Jono goes to a prison camp for 6 years for consensual sex with an age-appropriate partner. And Miriam's dad just gets auditing? Miriam's dad was not RPF for what happened to her, to the best of my knowledge. Do you know otherwise?
I just don't remember. I want to say no, but I couldn't swear on that.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it's fucked up. But like, you know, like I said, like, remember the whole Angelo Scozzi thing? And
that was before my time. Was he he was the commanding officer of AOLA and he slept with his like 14-year-old assistant?
15-year-old, yeah.
So what happened with all that?
He went to the RPF. instead of like getting
But
booted and sent to jail. Like he went to the RPF and she got kicked
did she?
out.
Oh,
She got
she
kicked
got
out.
kicked out.
Mm.
I see.
I know a girl, and this is a little bit back in the day, but still, when she was 16, she got raped in there, and the guy got to stay, and she got kicked out.
Wow.
It's twisted.
Yeah, it is twisted. And it's funny when we talk about some of these things, sometimes like the loudest voice in my head is what a Scientologist would say in objection to it. And I think a Scientologist would say, well, see, we RPF'd him. We RPF'd him. That means we're not okay with it. And this is a concept that was foreign to me when I was still in Scientology, that the fact that the idea that was not foreign to me was that the fact that they think Scientology is the only thing that can fix these pedophiles and perverts, the fact that they believe that is how they justify not turning them over to the authorities. And that's kind of where I went to earlier, is like, I do believe that at the rank and file level, Scientologists truly, truly believe that Scientology is the only thing that can fix that type of behavior. Even though you, as the Hazet Bridge, even you was like, well, then fix them in jail, right? But Scientologists, for the most part, would you agree, do believe that Scientology is the only thing that can fix aberrative behavior, right?
Yeah, like I mean, like even I thought that like that was the ultimate handling, but I was a little bit more biased because I had my own experience, and so I wish the worst. So I would rather
Right.
they be somewhere else. But generally speaking, like I think my perspective changed a lot when I got out into the real world. You know what I mean? While I was in there, even when I like, it's really hard to whatever. So I was kind of like, I would see things that I didn't agree with, or I thought were wrong, or I didn't see that they actually worked, or the contradiction of policy or something like that, let's just say. And so I would bring these things up, but I would a lot of times would have to settle with this idea that just because I don't see it doesn't mean that it's not right. Doesn't mean that that's not what is going to happen or is the way it should be just because I don't see it. Maybe some point I will get enough auditing or I'll get enough of something where I'll take on that perspective. So I would put that back on myself. It was when I got out and I look and I kind of go, what the fuck? You know, like, what was I thinking? Like, oh my God. But I had to see it in other scenarios for me to connect it, if that even makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it does. It does. So so you joined this year, you joined Bridge in 1991. You leave, I forget what the year was. It was 17 years later. When was it? 2000?
09, if I remember correctly,
09.
somewhere thereabouts. It was
What would you
after the
say
whole
was the
basics
main?
thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. What would you say was the main driver of you leaving the Sea Org after all that time?
Well, doing that manufacturing thing was so fucked up, and like, you know, it was a quote unquote COB projects. We did DRs every day to him, you know, through the COCMO and stuff. And the expectation was just brutal. And then on top of that, the basics finally came out. So we had quotas for that. We had quotas for posts. I had things that had to get done every single day for the thing. And there's a whole combination of things, I guess, because that's going on. I'm not sleeping. I'm just getting numb. I'm getting my fucking, like, I'm getting a new asshole ripped into me pretty much, you know, 2-3 times a day. And I'm just going and I'm doing stuff. They won't bust me from, I was under comment for almost 2 fucking years solid. So I'm never fucking upset. I never have ethics protection. And then on top of that, because the has gets penalized if there's not an SSO on post. So I keep recruiting people for that position. They keep using them for something else. I get in these firefights with people and I always lose. And finally, I just flip my shit and I'm mad as hell. I've been down step for 2 years. I've been under comment for 2 years. And meanwhile, I'm producing so much that my senior and my junior are both upset all the fucking time on my work. you know, and I'm just like, this is bullshit. But at this, you know, and then at the same time, I have this thing going on with Jono. I know he's gone off and fucked this person now. I haven't told anybody. I didn't even tell him that I knew, and I just fucking knew. And I was like, well, I don't even have him left anymore. I don't agree with the shit that's going on. I'm tired of doing two gruesomes and whatever till 3, 4 in the morning, and then going back and doing a fucking personnel CSW, and then showing back up at 8 o'clock in the morning to start the whole thing over again and whatever else. And you know, just the things that were happening were just shitty. And I think I just felt like I'm fighting this battle I can't win for something that I'm not sure I believe in anyways. You know, and no one would give me this disagreement remedy to sort out why I don't agree with half of the fucking Scientology stuff. And so I was like, they're only keeping me on post because I'm getting stuff done. You know, like otherwise, after being in ComEd for downstat for 2 years, anyone would have been canned. But I'm not getting canned because I'm still getting stuff done. They still need to get done. I mean, I even had a conversation with Molly Hertling. Actually, it was a pretty good conversation in a sense, because I was losing my mind over the SSO thing. I finally actually recruited a class 4 OT. And then they were like, oh, we're going to take her for AO. I'm like, the fuck you are. I was like, I have recruited 5 people for this position. This one's staying. I'm not doing this again. And I, you know, pretty much just blew a fuse so bad that somehow I ended up talking to the COCMO back because I think no one else wanted to deal with me because I was like telling everyone to fuck off. And she was like, Jenny, she goes, you aren't wrong. This is fucked up. She goes, but we're almost there. She's like, all we got to do is get these last people and we're done. We're just done. And all of a sudden, you know, it was weird. She just acknowledged that it was not okay. And she put into perspective that we were that close, you know. And then I guess I just kind of had in my mind, you know what? I'll finish this because I agreed to do it. And I'll stick with my word. We needed 6 more fucking people. Then I'm going to march my fucking ass straight out that door. There's a couple people I wanted to make sure were going to be good and safe. So I reposted them to places where I knew they would do well. And my little pit bull of an INR who was like a running, walking fucking evil.
Was that
purpose.
Daisy Spallino?
No,
No.
it was Hans,
Daisy Clark?
no, it was Hans Brown.
Oh, Hans. Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, that fucker. Anyways.
Where'd you
yeah.
repost Hans?
No, I wasn't worried about him. I was worried about him trying to send these people like he had like he would just gun after people, and he, like a dog with, you know, like a pit bull with a bone, he is not going to let go even if he is wrong. He won't let go. So I took these people and I put them into positions where they would do so well, he would leave them the fuck alone because he kept trying to send one of them to the RPF, and she was only, first she was 14, 15, and I was like, go fuck yourself. She's a child. She's not going. And he's like, that's not Sea Oregon. We're all like Thetans and no. It's like, okay, well, her body is 15, so she's not going to the RPF. Get over it. And whatever. So we just did some stuff, and then I got the last 6 people, and I didn't even return back to Bridge. I just said, I'm done. I'm out. They also fucked another thing up while I was gone. Like, so I finally the COCMO grants me that person. She said, we won't let that go anywhere else. That person will come to Bridge. I promise you. Let's just get these last ones done. So I was like, good. Then Brandon walks the fuck over to Senior HCO pack with like a shit replacement. And then while I'm on tour, they take my DER personnel to try to make her my senior, and then take the recruiter and make her that replacement. So now I'm out of PPO, which means I'm punished again. I'm penalized again. I have to have SSO and PPO. And I'm like, you guys are pieces of fucking shit. You literally are just trying to sink me. I said, well, you know what? I'm done. Not fucking coming back. And then I didn't. Never set foot on pack base again.
Where'd you go?
Well, I guess full disclosure. I knew that the only way that I would make sure that I couldn't get like, okay, so the thing you couldn't talk me into doing was the RPF. There was just no way to talk me into doing that program. So, but I also knew that I could be a pushover because look at me, I was there forever. I grew up there since I, you know, in the Sierra basically since I was like 3. So it's what you know of life, you know. So it's kind of I knew I could be pushed over, you know, my mom or somebody could, you know, talk me into it or whatever. But so I actually went out to D to make sure that I would never back out. Like, cause if I go out to D, that means I go to the RPF. No matter what they say, I'm going to the RPF, and I'm not going to go to the RPF. So that makes it so I stay out. So then I called my mother, and I was like, then I was just all kinds of fucked up, honestly, because I could even safely say that I don't think I could even see very clearly. Like I was so spinning in my head that like it was like walking in darkness for real. Like I was actually at truly honestly at a point where I would rather have been dead than spend another day there. Like I truly wish that someone would take my life and just put me straight out of my misery. I wanted it so bad. And that's, you know, probably about the lowest I think I've ever been. So I called my mom and was like, I need fucking help. Like, I need to talk to you. Like, I am not doing good. Like, everything in the org and my posts, everything's gone to shit. John was off fucking some other girl. I'm like worn out. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I don't know what I do and don't believe. I'm just fucked up. And she goes, well, I can't. I'm auditing Earl Cooley right now. I'm, you know, in Boston or on the Cape or whatever. And I'm like, I'm your daughter. I need fucking help. Like, I need fucking help. And so she's like, okay, get on a plane, come see me. So I was like, okay, but I need it to be just you. I need to have like the free reign to just have a conversation with you as my mom. I don't need anyone else there. We just need to talk. She said, that's fine. Like, go to the airport. You just come on over. I go to the airport and someone from fucking Bridge is there at the airport oh, look at me. How did that happen?
The iOS will detect some hand signals and
yeah. How about that? All right. Not that this is a great firework moment, but anyways. So so then there's there. I'm like, bitch got me a fucking handler. It was exactly the one thing I didn't want. I wanted to just be alone with her. And so I go there and, you know, she's dealing with, you know, Earl Cooley, who's the lawyer or whatever for Scientology. But anyway, so I'm with the handler now all the time. I'm under fucking watch. And my mom's busy. She finally shows up and she's like, okay, well, what is it that you wanted to say? We're sitting on some picnic bench thing. Like, kind of looking at her watch, like she's got to be back somewhere in an hour or something, she said. I was like, fuck this. And the handler's standing like 20 feet away. And I guess in case I bolt or something. And I was just like, I wanted to talk to you. You told me that I could come and see you with no one else. I would have told her anything she wanted to know at that point in time. I would have let her help me unravel everything and talk me into going back. I'm sure she could have done it. And, you know, since it's her job and all. But she just lied to me. Like, and all I could see was it was probably the moment I needed her the most because I was so spun out. I mean, I literally wanted to fucking die. And she couldn't just give me the time of fucking day. So I got sent back to, I said, I'm not fucking going back to PAC. Go fuck yourselves. So they took me to Arrowhead. And now I had 2 watches. So I had 2 people watching me 24 fucking hours a day.
Arrowhead and like, where's that? Arkansas? Where's Arrowhead?
California, up in the mountains. Think Shelly Miscavige.
Oh, I thought you meant Narconon Arrowhead.
Lake Arrowhead. Am I saying it right? Oh. Yeah, it is. Arrowhead.
No, I'm sorry. The Narconon Arrowhead is the name of a Narconon. I thought that's what you meant. You meant Lake Arrowhead, California. What was there? What were they sending you to there?
So somebody had a family member that had a cabin. So they had me cleaning, you know, doing some physical work. They made me take walks because obviously I was crazy. So I'm taking walks. I'm cleaning. I think the idea was just to let me chill the fuck out, I guess. I don't really fucking know, honestly. I thought I was waiting for something.
So this wasn't even a Scientology facility. It was just a place they arranged for you to be away from people and things to chill.
I'm sure I was a threat at that time because I pretty much wanted to fucking die, and I said it. And so I think that was probably it. And I think they're watching me, and then so, one day my mom calls me and she's like, yeah, I found out what you really did. You went out to eat with this guy. And I said, did it ever occur to you that I might have actually just fucking used that guy for that reason? Like, because I didn't want to go to I don't want to stay. And, I was just like, I said, actually, I would have happily just told you that. I said, it wasn't like a big secret in my mind. I would have just, I was coming to tell you everything. I would have told you anything you want to know. And instead of giving me the time of day, you ship me back. You call a handler, you lie to me, you ship me back. And then now you took the time to go through my phone records, find people, convince them that I had gone batshit fucking crazy to give information about me from 2 or 3 different people. I said, but you couldn't invest that same time into me? I was like, fuck you. Hung up the phone, called my dad, and I said, I'm going fucking crazy. Get me the fuck out of here. He's like, stay on the phone. He booked me a ticket. He said, get to LAX. I bought you a ticket to come here. And so
Wow.
I told security who showed up there to be the bearer of bad tidings with my mom on the phone. I said, I need to get to LAX right now. And he's like, well, I said, you either take me to LAX or I'm going to start walking down that fucking road and I will hitchhike. I will get there. So are you going to take me or I'm going to start hitchhiking? And he was like, get in the car. We'll take you. So
by the way, the
I did my
listeners
route out at
will
Flag.
know, the listeners will recognize the name of the security guard in question, the famous Odo Huber.
It was Odo.
It was Odo. So they trusted Odo. I mean, what a sweetheart gig, being sent up to watch you at Lake Arrowhead. It doesn't get better than that.
Odo wasn't my watch, but he just came up to bring the cell phone to let my mom tell me that she had just spent hours digging around my personal records to dig up dirt on me instead of just talking to me.
Odo was assigned to drive all the way up there just to deliver a cell phone to you so your mom could call you.
Yeah.
Who was watching you?
So at that point, so it started with 2 security people. And then it switched to 2 bridge people because it was going on too long. I don't know what the fuck they were trying to accomplish or what they're waiting for or what the fuck of anything. The fuck. Except for it was like way too long and I need to go.
So, but like, do you remember who was watching you though? Because do you know how happy I would have been to be a Sea Org member assigned to go up to Lake Arrowhead to watch someone? I've been like, vacation, baby.
Yeah. So it was Chelsea. She used to be in security at the time. She was a girl. And I think Sean Allen, I think, was there for part of the time. Then he left and it was just me and Chelsea. And then they sent 2 people from Bridge to come and replace them because, security was too important. They needed to get back to their shenanigans. And I was Bridge's problem because I was a Bridge staff member.
Wow. So your mom calls you. Oh, you go to the airport. Odo drives you to the airport. Wow.
It was either that or I was going to hitchhike, and I wasn't fucking playing. I was going to walk straight down that fucking road with my thumb out.
Wow. I wonder how much trouble Odo got in for that, even though it was clearly the right decision. Even from a Sea Org perspective, it would have been the right decision.
I think it was all coordinated, I think once that was done and I was it was just basically go fuck yourselves. And this is what's going to happen. I think my mom was like, yeah, just send her over here to me. So I went and stayed with my dad. He lives about 2 minutes from Flag driving. And so
in Clearwater, Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet they were thrilled with that. So at that point though, your dad, it was in good standing with Scientology or no?
Yeah.
Oh, he made a decision there too. My goodness.
I thought for sure that he was going to get tanked for that, but I appreciated it because I thought that's what a parent should do. You take that risk for your child, and that's what I thought. Yeah. So I thought he did the right thing. I was scared for him, but it turned out that it was okay. It was fine because I cooperated once I got there. I couldn't go in session because I never slept. So they did metered ethics interviews instead. And then,
oh, lucky you.
Yeah, I won't fucking do another
wow
bullshit subject.
So how long did they have to work you over those coals before you got out of there a free woman?
You know, everything was so blurry. I don't even know. I just remember from the time I went under watch to the time I was signing those fucking papers with the camera on me and security standing in the room and someone sitting across the table. I was just like signing away, and the guy goes, the security guard is like one of the flag security guards. I don't remember who it was because I didn't know them, but he's like, "Are you even reading it?" I was like, "You pulled the shit from my files, didn't you?" And he's like, yeah. I said, "Well, then I shouldn't have to read it." And I just kept signing. So they got that shit on camera if they try to come at me. I didn't read anything in there. All I
You
could
should have
think
been like,
about,
"Hi, Earl. Hope the sessions are going well, Earl."
I was like, all I could see, I was like, this close to freedom. I was like, I will sign anything at this point in time. I do not care. And so I signed it. And then when I walked out, I was like, it was like you had this huge burden just suddenly is just like gone. And it just was like, wow, this is amazing. I feel so fucking good. Yeah.
So that was like 2009.
Yeah. Right thereabouts. Yeah. Yeah. It had to have been 2009, 8, 9. I don't know. Somewhere thereabout.
So by the time, did you leave officially in good standing? I guess so, right? Because you've kind of been under the
Yeah.
radar for a while.
Yeah. I don't know that I was like good standing, but like, because
You were
my
like
mom
Debbie
never
Cook
stopped
standing.
treating, yeah, like she never stopped treating me like I was a threat. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she was constantly PTS handlings with me. Like literally one time she went as far as asking me how the weather was and how the road was to my house. So are you
No.
fucking kidding me? Yeah.
No way.
Anyways, so as I then asked her, I said, "What is it that you really want to know?" And then she told me about the Leah Remini show. And she said, well, first she said, "I just wanted to see if anyone kind of like put 2 and 2 together." So 2 and 2 of what? Like, what are you talking about? Because we didn't talk a whole lot because, we just have this rocky relationship where we're just not on the same page about things most of my life. So anyways, I said, 2 and 2 of what? Like, what are you talking about? She goes, "Well, that like, I'm your mom, you're my daughter." I was like, who the fuck would even care about that? Like, what are you getting at? Like, what are you talking about? And she goes, "Well, there's Leah Remini's doing a show right now, da da da, and it's attacking Scientology, and they're interviewing different people, and wanted to see if maybe someone had like reached out to you, and da da da." I was like, "Wouldn't you like to know?" And I was kind of like, "No." Then, but I was like, if that's all, I was like, I literally have people at my house right now. So, which is true. I did. I was I was trying to be in the kitchen, trying to have a hushy conversation because no one around here understands it. And so, and it was the first time she talked to me in probably a year and a half. So whatever. So I was kind of like, we got to go. So I hung up, and then I was like, I wonder what that is. So I went on Netflix, and it just happened to be on Netflix. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to watch this. And I was watching it after
Wow.
having been out for a few years, and I was just like, oh my fucking God. Like you're just suddenly seeing everything from a totally different perspective now. When you're in, you justify all that or you think it's right or the way it is or whatever. And then when you're out here and you've been dealing with the way things are, and now you're looking at that and you're like, holy shit. Like, and also the thing like with Marie Carroll, Marie Poulin, like
Oh, Marie Bielheimer.
Bielheimer, I'm sorry. I even remember when she got married to him. But so we recruited her. She was Marie Carroll. So in my defense, her name was right. But like when she was talking about Aaron Poulin, it just fired me up because when he died, Jono told me that he had gotten cancer. And then they wouldn't let anyone go to his like little memorial service. Like none of his friends from like the ranch and the Red Shirt TTC guys got to go. Any of the other SEER members, I mean, I would have gone, but it was like this big hush hush thing. But yeah, they said he, and then I just thought, you know what? If John said that, I think he probably knew the truth. And I thought, that's really fucked up. And, his friends should have been able to be there for him, and I don't know, it just made me so fucking sad for Aaron, so sad for Marie, So sad for all his friends. Like, just, it's just such an awful, awful, awful thing. And it just, not only does it get swept on the rug, but then they tell people that he got an illness. It's just like, I don't
They
know,
told
like so
different stories to different
disrespectful.
people.
Hmm?
Boswell, they told different stories to different people. Boswell told people that he had blown and was now a Scientology attacker.
Oh my God.
They
The
told
fuck is-
so many people so many different stories about what happened to him, just as an alternative to not wanting to tell anyone that he killed himself.
Yeah, like, yeah, that he was so depressed and sad and in such a bind that he didn't have an like, yeah, it's like really bad. It's, so that, and of course I saw the Miriam thing, and then I remembered the thing with her dad, and I was like, oh my God, she's not lying. It's true. It's true. I was like, what the fuck? I forgot about that. And, um, and then there was a few others on there that, like, at least I, like, either I knew about or was around, and it just was, I don't know, it was just, it sucked seeing it, like, from this different perspective. It made me feel very guilty, like, just having ever been associated with the organization that did these things. I just felt like crap. But it, the same, reversely, I still wasn't in that mindset where I was going to go. I didn't, I wasn't thinking I was going to speak out. They actually did try to bombard me one time when I was flying to LA. I think later it came up, it was for the same thing. They thought I was going to go speak out or something. I don't know. I've been accused of it for so long that I guess it shouldn't be a
Who
big
tried to
surprise that
bombard
I
you?
finally did. Yeah, that was a whole fucked
Who?
up thing too. Um, my mom, my sister, my brother's mother-in-law, like, I caught it early enough, and then I called them out on it, and then it just fucking pissed everybody off. I said, don't you dare come near me. I will make a scene.
What did they show up at the airport while you were arriving at an airport?
So I was already getting funny vibes from my mom. Like, she's pretty predictable in a weird way. So I was going to spend Christmas in Los Angeles with my friend and Erica, Carmen and Erica. And so I was going to go spend some time with them. But what I did is, because I felt like something was kind of funky or off, I didn't tell anybody until the night before. I told my dad, as I'm flying to LA. My sister already had plans to go to Sacramento to see a couple of her friends. And so but I didn't tell him what flight I was going to be on. I didn't tell him anything. I just said, tomorrow I'll be flying. And I did that on purpose because he's, like, from a parental perspective, he always tells my mom everything, from one parent to the next. So, but I didn't, so he wouldn't have known. And so I'm getting ready to fly out there. And then my sister messages me and says, or I landed. No, no, no. I was getting ready to go, and she messages me and she said, "Hey, we should meet up when I get to LA because my flight gets in right around the same time as yours." I said, "How do you know that?" And she goes, "Oh, well, because didn't you tell me?" I said, "No, of course I didn't." And then she said, "Oh, then Dad must have told me." I said, "I didn't tell Dad." I said, "How did you know? How did you find out? Like, that's just weird. Be honest." And then she's kind of like, "No, I was gonna whatever." So what happened to Sacramento? She was like, "No, no, I was gonna go to LA first." I was like, "Sure you were." So I was like, "This is just weird." I said, "Let me just think on this." I said, "Because I'm getting, I don't feel like you're being honest, and this just feels weird." And then and my mom had told me the week before, I guess we texted or something, that she was doing work in Texas. That she was actually literally, it was just a few days before, she was in Texas and would be over the holiday. I think that's what it was. I asked her what she did for the holiday. And she said she's working in Texas. And then all of a sudden the next day she messages me. She's like, "Hey, maybe we should all get together since I'm in LA." And then my sister messages me again and says, "Let's get together, and Ronit wants to be there too." This is my brother's mother-in-law. She's a hardcore Scientologist, FSM, Power FSM, like a million years in a row.
Renee, what's her last name?
Sirocco.
Renee Sirocco. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? So I said, "Don't you all think you're going to be ambushing me or something?" I said, "This isn't okay." I said, "I'm not a fucking moron. You were in San Antonio. You were supposed to be in Sacramento. You somehow know my flight. You magically appear in LA. Now you guys, plus Renee, all want to meet up with me. Fuck no. Absolutely not. And so then I was with, Erica, the one I've grown up with since I was little. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. I kind of told her. She goes, oh, she goes, they better not show up here. She goes, I'll be standing right in front of you at that door. They're not coming in here. And I was like, thank you so much. I was like, I was just so weirded out and freaked out. And she just had my best interest, And so I hope I don't get in trouble for that. But, it's just weird. So when I was asking them about it, it's all denial, denial, denial. And so then I was like, okay, now I'm just being a dick. So I was like, look, Mom, I said, we're going to have Christmas breakfast here with her kids and everything. I said, why don't you come? I said, since you're in LA, why don't you come up, have Christmas breakfast with us? Let's open presents and stuff like that. And she goes, oh, her message back was like, oh, I can't, working. It's Christmas fucking day, please.
Wow.
Suddenly she can't meet with me, but she was trying to until I called them out on it. And now all of a sudden it can't, it's just like, I don't know. And then you ask about it and you just want some honesty, like that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of these weird things like that with just some real straightforward, hard fucking truths would have gone a long way with me, but I just get bullshitted all the fucking time. And it just adds to my frustration. So I'm just like, and it's stuff that happened. Like when I told her some of the stuff that happened, the first thing she said to me is that didn't happen. I was like, yeah, actually it happened to me. And she's like, no. I was like, okay, if I can't resolve things and have people be real with me here and no one's going to take the shit I'm saying seriously and whatever, then I'll just go about it a different way. Fuck you.
Wow.
Turn in your
Do you
pedophiles,
think-
turn in your fucking rapists. I'll shut my channel down.
Exactly. Do you think they were trying to meet up with you because they were worried that you were going there to film some episode for some show?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think that's what came up afterwards, but only by a slip. You know what I mean? Like, I know my mom so well that the best thing to do with her is to just listen. And it comes out. She's gonna fucking hate me for that. I know her fucking patterns. Like I used to tell my dad, this is exactly what she's gonna do. And I was 99.98% of the time I was fucking right. She would do exactly what I said she was gonna do. And so it's just this weird fake thing. And I'm just not into that. I'm a bit of a realist, and then like, they stick people on me, my friends, to come and like, instead of them head on just dealing with me and what they think is an issue or a problem and being real honest with me and like, let's talk it out. They stick my friends on me as if I don't fucking know what my friends are doing. And because you could tell by the nature of the conversation, it's designed to try and dig up dirt and to handle me, so I don't get more sour. I'm like, how about if they all stop accusing me of going to talk out? Like literally up until however long ago, recently, I was never planning to do it. I just wasn't. I cared more about the existence of my family who doesn't give a shit about me, whatever. I was still gonna, for them, not do it. And then finally I was like, you know what? Since you really want this, here I am. Get what you want.
What was it? If there was one specific thing that made you go, they've been so paranoid for all these years that I was going to speak out, and I had zero plans to do so, but there must have been something that made you go, okay, this is it. Like, right? Like it wasn't just the fact that they thought you were going to do it this whole time. Like, was there one or a few things that were like, this pushed me over the edge?
Okay. So I think, so obviously I had my own doubts while I was still in there. We already discussed that. And then when I saw the Leah Remini thing, I actually felt guilty. So the guilt is starting to actually set in a little bit. And then when the Danny Masterson thing happened, I think I just got enraged because my personal issues with it, and seeing that this many years later, the same shit's still going on, and it just got me so fired up. And I even brought it up a couple of times to people, and it just was always like, you're wrong. It's really Leah Remini just stirring everything up. And look, these girls are all lying about him. I'm like, how the fuck do you know? Do you know them personally? Maybe you shouldn't call them liars. You know, why don't you read that letter from fucking Ruth Bowen? That pretty much fucking says everything. That should have been in the court case. That says everything that you would, that if you have any doubts, her letter puts all that to fucking rest. Anyway, so that goes on. And then funny enough, I have a friend at my last job that I had, and she's like a super crime junkie, like super into all that shit. And so we're always talking about different things. And I'm into like the cult podcast. She's into the true crime. So we're always swapping stories and making each other listen to podcasts, right? So she gets me started on this guy called Mr. Ballin, who is a great storyteller. You should listen to him sometime. But he was doing this one episode on the satanic cult in Mexico. And I mean, it's creepy as fuck and twisted and everything. But he starts talking about the way these cult members carried out their assignments, carried out their duties, despite this and that and whatever. And the way he describes it, 100% like Sea Org attitude. And I was like sitting there thinking, God, these guys are crazy. Oh, that's a lot. That's, oh shit, I kind of remember being like that. And I was like, that's weird. So then I ended up listening. Someone got me started on this podcast called Morbid. The first episode I happened to listen to is about a cult as well. And something in there also resonated with me. And I was like, holy fuck, that's weirdly similar. And then I don't remember what I was listening to, but someone was talking about like self-help and kind of how you move past trauma or something. And they talked about needing to like own your life, own your past. Like you're not going to get through it and over it if you can't even acknowledge that these things happened or you did things or things happened or whatever. And it was really at that moment that I realized that I was so ashamed of my childhood, so embarrassed about every aspect of it. I had withheld that my abuse for all of my life since it happened. And even in the Sea Org, this is how ashamed it was of it. If somebody didn't already know me, I was not telling them that I was raised in the cadet org and the CEO. I would never, to other people who are around or whatever, I didn't even want them knowing that about me. Somehow it had some weird bad stigma connected. And I was sure everyone would know, like, kind of like what a shitty person I was, or like, oh, she's one of them. I don't know why I was like that, but I realized at that moment, I was like, yeah, I'm really not going to get over this shit unless I own it, unless I maybe like, even if I am ashamed of it or I am embarrassed by it or I'm very hurt by it, like I can't, like I have to work through it. I have to be able to acknowledge that it did happen. I was part of these things. I was there, And so, and at that time I was also talking to my cousin a lot, and we would discuss different things, and he never made me feel bad about them. He didn't make me feel weird about them. And he just was very encouraging about, like, it was like he was like the first person who really just told me these things weren't my fault. And I wasn't used to hearing that it wasn't something wrong with me. And I wasn't used to hearing that. And so I think probably the Danny Masterson thing got me fired up enough where in a needing to finally talk about my own experience, I was just like, yeah, if they're not going to get rid of these people and they're going to keep harboring and fighting for them, then I'll fight for the other people.
Wow. So you have done a bunch of videos on your channel. You have gone into some really deep, emotional, hurtful stuff. I sort of said, for both of our sakes, maybe we don't delve into that in our interview.
Yeah,
I'm already a crybaby on normal shit.
Yeah, I start thinking about it, like my eyes are already like super watery. Like I think I'm not like in the headspace yet where I can comfortably look at, like Yeah, see, I've already started. Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. So, anyway, so yeah.
And
Okay.
there's a lot of people watching who weren't here when I first showed your channel. So for anyone, and I've seen the question in the live chat come up. Jenny's channel is Cults and Atheists, a
Yeah.
search for knowledge and healing. The handle is at Cults and Atheists. So
Yeah.
for anyone wondering why we're not getting into the kid.org stuff or the child stuff, it is on her channel. You can watch those videos. Please do. How has it felt for you doing the
Um,
videos, having the conversations with your cousin, and afterwards?
um, so it's been like, initially it was very like freeing, like, wow, like I can actually just say these things. And I was thinking I was going to get a lot of hate in the comments and stuff. And then it was just funny to see that like everyone that was in there was kind of like, no one was telling me that there was something wrong with me. And that was pretty amazing. And so, and then like, actually the first interview we did, we just ran into some editing issues and problems. The first interview we had done was with this guy who was part of the order, and it's a polygamous group. And I did that first because it seemed easier maybe to talk about someone else's issues than my own. But he was such a great person to talk to, because in that interview, he really made me feel even more okay to just go ahead and say what happened and just own my truth. And as Grant Cardone says, fuck the haters. But he makes jokes. This guy makes jokes all the time. It's hilarious. Every time I'm talking to him, I'm like cracking up. And so then, yeah, so then my cousin and I started on my story, and it was sometimes a whole lot harder than I thought it would be. Like, because a lot of times, you're not allowed to express emotion in the Sea Org, and as a child and stuff, it was very like H-E-N-R-E, downtone, banky, every other word they have for it. So you learn to just say things almost matter of factly, even if they feel like a knife is like stabbing you. And I was actually able to just talk about it with whatever emotion came at the time, and so that was pretty awesome. And then some of it was really hard. And then I think like through it, I actually think I finally understood why my relationship with my mother never worked. And it finally was clear to me. And it was like all of a sudden this battle I didn't have to fight anymore. And that was so relieving for me. It's so hurtful because I am second to Scientology, but it's also good to know, it just, so you don't have to fight something that you're not going to ever win, and stop feeling so crazy about it, like it could just like let it go. It's a choice and whatever. And so I'm having some ups and downs with my dad right now, but and I don't know where that's going to land, but it's fine. It's all for the better, I think.
Wow. Is your dad still officially a Scientologist in good standing?
I guess it's kind of a little bit questionable. Yes and no. Like, so from what my mother told me some years ago, he's not going to be allowed to ever do the OT levels this lifetime. And it's funny that they say this lifetime, like there's another
That
one.
kind of still
Anyways,
implies he's in good standing, though. Like,
but yeah, so
there's
he's allowed
plenty
to
of
basically do training, but he had disagreements with the Golden Age of Tech. So he hasn't moved since then. So he's kind of like, he's not allowed to do auditing. He's allowed to do training, but he boggled up on the training. So he hasn't been on lines for a long time, but he is very, very much a very true believer. Like the original Scientology under L. Ron Hubbard. He's really strong on that.
Huh. Man, that's something, that's a long time to hold on to that. I mean, the original Golden Age of Tech was in 1996. Was that the beginning of the end for him? He's
No,
still hanging in there.
his was even like earlier, like when they said he wasn't going to be able to do auditing anymore. I don't even think they told that to his face, but my mom told me it back when, I think maybe it was even like, I think she told me that 25 or some odd years ago.
So that means he's an illegal PC, though.
I don't know what the fuck it means. I'm just,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Wow.
know. Yeah, so he was mid OT5, I think, or something like that. Mid or done with, he was a class 9 BC
Wow.
grad.
Wow. You mentioned watching these cult programs.
Yeah.
Isn't
I'm so
it
fascinated.
crazy to consider? Isn't it crazy to consider
Mm.
that being in a cult for 30 years didn't make you feel like you were in a cult, but watching programs about other cults did?
Yeah, that is what did it for me, for sure. And like when I started reaching out to some people to see if they wanted to do interviews, I didn't think it would explode like it did. Like I have, I think, 5 interviews that I have just not gotten to editing. It just, I had to stop calling. Like,
Oh, you've done them? You've actually done them? But not.
yeah, I put another one up
Wow.
today, and but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, still stuck with editing. And
Oh,
yeah, I'm
not
just a
former
little.
Scientologists, though.
No, Jehovah's Witnesses, The Order, Shiny Happy People, like crazy shit. That's very,
Oh.
dude. When I do the Shiny Happy People one, you listen to that, because I'm pretty sure since theirs was after us, they actually stole from us. But I think we stole from the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Maybe the Nexium people stole from Scientology too. Did you see the Nexium stuff?
I don't have HBO Max, so I can't see it. I'm like really frustrated. But I listened to some podcasts about it, and it's crazy. When they said the word intensive, I'm like, hold up, what? And they said a
No one
couple
else
other
uses the
words.
word intensives. Yeah.
I know. Nobody uses that. And there were some other words too, super Scientology words. I was like, okay. And like I tell some people this because like I think now I'm backtracking a little bit, but when you first get out of like the Sea Org and you enter into the world where Scientology doesn't really exist, I didn't realize, like, I know there's Scientology words that are just unique to Scientology, but I hadn't realized that they were taking normal words and putting their own definitions with them. So I used one of the normal words with this guy out in Texas. And he goes, I know the word you're saying, but I think you think it means something else. I was like, no. He
Do you
goes,
remember which word it was?
I've been trying to remember because it was so funny. Because I was like, no. He goes, yeah, I think you think it means something else. So now I have a cell phone. So I pull up dictionary.com. I was like, oh, holy shit. I'm so wrong. What I just said sounded like insane. Like it didn't even make sense. Then I started to question, like, how many other words are not right? So I had dictionary.com as like a fucking permanent tab on my phone. So if I got into a deep conversation with someone, I would start looking up some of the words to make sure I didn't sound like a total moron. But that's kind of, I think, part of that culty aspect,
Yeah.
that, and then like the good.
Well, one Scientology word that it just never occurred to me wasn't a real word is outpoint. It's not a real word. No one knows what the hell you mean when you say it.
I forgot about that because I've not even used that word since then. Actually, it wasn't until I started listening to like your channel and listening to Jeffrey Augustine, like when he had this iHeartRadio podcast. It's not his YouTube thing, but it wasn't until I started listening to that where I was like, even some of those, I was like, I know that word, but what is it? Then I was trying to remember the word tone 40, and for the life of me, I could not fucking remember. And I was like, I was talking to like another person's next Scientologist. I'm like, when you're like gonna go for it, or you're like super exhilarated, or like, what is it? And it's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, fuck. And little by little, all these words have come back to me, and now I'm like talking like a Martian again.
What about the upside down definition of reasonable?
Oh my God, yes. That was one of them that I did say wrong to somebody. Because they're like, so it does make sense. I'm like, no, as in you're reasonable. They're like, yeah, I'm making sense. I'm like, motherfuck, no, you're justifying it for the person. They're like, why are you using that word then? I'm like, I don't fucking know at this point. I'm like, why are we having this stupid conversation? And it happened to me several times. I was like really embarrassed. I would use words and people would just stare at me like, and I was like, okay,
Right.
clearly I said something wrong, and I'd have to start looking.
Ren Listen says, what does outpoint mean? It basically just means a red flag, or like it's a contradiction. It's something that lacks a good explanation. It's something that's there that shouldn't be there, or something that should be there that isn't. That's actually how they define it in the dictionary, if you remember. An outpoint. It's something that needs to be investigated to get to the bottom of it. It's an outpoint, you know. Yeah. Her phone's always off at particular time every day. It's an outpoint.
Or how about,
you know, whatever.
She's so outpointy right now.
So outpointing. So outpointing. Yeah. Off the rails. Outpoints everywhere.
Off the rails. Nobody uses that. They're so off the rails.
I don't even know where that phrase came from, because I don't remember that phrase being in any policy letter. I don't remember that being something L. Ron Hubbard said, but that is like the most common Sea Org phrase. So off the rails.
That, or like heads are gonna roll, or not head. No, what is it?
Heads on a pike. Head on a pike.
Heads on a pike.
Yeah.
There were certain ones that were not LRH, but they would get said all the time, like weird.
Well, SRA,
sayings like that.
SRA.
Oh my God. Fuck
Severe
that word.
reality adjustment to the HNL. Whole nother level.
That's from a movie, isn't it? Or
it's from Key and Peele. It's from a comedy skit.
I always watch them. They're so fucking funny. They're on late
That's
night
my
here,
intro.
so I still watch them.
That's where my intro to my video comes from, of course.
Oh yeah, no, I saw that so many years ago, but it's not. It never gets unfunny. It's always funny. Jake Quallen.
Jake Quallen. Where's Jake Quallen at?
Jake Quallen.
So when you okay, I want to talk about your mom. I think your mom is a perfect case study, a perfect example, especially since she worked for OSA, and there's someone else who gets a lot of attention right now who currently worked for OSA for a very long time. Your mom, like, is a perfect example of, if she were to leave Scientology, is she a villain or is she a victim? Is she for me, it's a good example because she's literally worked for the Office of Special Affairs for fucking decades. And she knows a lot of stuff, which means she's been complicit in a lot of stuff. And yet everyone who's in there is in a cult. I mean, like, how do you think about it? How do you see your mom? How do you view your mom?
I see her as both the abused and abuser. Because she got in when she was like 19. She came out of a really hard family situation. Scientology just gave her that group family sort of dynamic that she needed. And hey, there's another one too, because dynamic out in the real world does not mean one of the fucking 8 points, by the way. Anyways, okay. So there you go. So she was very young. I mean, you think about it, like 19 is not old. And
no,
especially when you're in that situation where you really need help, you need something. So, and she's like a super true believer. She was auditing people. So you're in that position where all these people are spouting all these wins. So it really solidifies how real and true this is. You know what I mean? Because here's all these people that she's making into OTs, and I don't know. So like, my issues with her are always obviously on a personal level. I didn't have to deal with her on post. Thank God. That would have been like World War III probably. So I have constant problems with her, like, anyways, whatever. It's like hard. It's like almost going to take a whole thing to explain my relationship with my mother, but it isn't a great one. It hasn't been a great one. We've gone very up, very down most of my life. So
are you still in touch with your mom?
It was very sporadic. So like I would talk to her, then I wouldn't talk to her for like a year and a half. Then I would talk to her, then I wouldn't talk to her for 2 years. And I would kind of talk to her a little bit. We'd get into a tiff about something, and then usually it's the same thing. And then more recently, I went down there a couple times. She wouldn't see me, and then made some excuse like a few weeks later. And then she finally messaged me this last year sometime about how she wants to fix their relationship. So I brought up the same shit, and there we go. Same little hamster wheel, goes nowhere. And I said, look, I'm done being a conditional fucking daughter. I don't need a conditional family member. Balls in your court. We're either going to be real, or there's no reason to keep pretending.
Right.
And then she just kind of, that was it. No more. She sent me an acknowledgement to that, and we haven't spoken since. I found out from my dad. I found out from my dad that she's apparently been ill for a year and a half. And obviously, so for a year and a half, even when we did have sporadic conversation, apparently I wasn't worth telling. So it just tells you I'm not really family for her, I guess. So like I told him, I said, it's so incredibly sad on so many different levels. Like, so here I am. She hasn't talked to me since sometime last year. And even that was the first time in however many months. And she hasn't, seen me for probably 3 or 4 years, because she didn't want to come let me see her when I was 2 minutes away from her. And then, she didn't want to tell me she was ill. I don't know how serious it is, but I know she did almost die back when I was 17, and so it's, and, there's no way for me to reach her. She doesn't have a cell phone now because she's dealing with this situation. And so it's really up to her if she even wants to talk. I don't, even though we aren't great and haven't been great, I guess she's still my mom-ish. But, like if I had known a year and a half ago, like, I'll be totally honest, even if us not being on the best of terms, I would have like helped research her condition. I would have looked around for facilities that could deal with it. I would, or whatever it is that she's got, like, let's talk about how serious it is. Does she need someplace to be? Does she want to be someplace? Like I would have done it. Instead, of the time she wants to come and see me, she doesn't tell me about this. She just wants to sort out why the fuck I don't agree with everything. And I'm not going to sit there for 3 days and listen to her harp at me about what a piece of shit I am. And so I said, no, I decline. I'm not going to have that kind of a weekend, and I told my dad, like, cause then she told my dad that I refused to see her. And I was like, okay, a little out of fucking context. I'm not going to argue with her all weekend. That's my point. That's what the subject of the conversation was. And to sort it out, she said she should come and see me, and I'm not going to fucking argue with her for 3 days. I'm done. I'm over it. I said, if it was about something else, she should have said it, and I would have accepted. I would have been fine talking about something else. And so it's super fucked up, because I don't know. I don't know if it's really serious. I don't know if it's not so serious. I'm going to guess it's pretty serious, because her body's pretty frail, because the treatment she had to do when I was 17 was, she literally almost died. So it was, yeah, it's, it left her not very strong physically. Mentally, she's a bulldog, but whatever.
So she got in when she was 19. How old would you say your mom is now?
She was 19 or 20. So now she is, 69? No, she'll be 69 this year. Yeah, she'll be 69 this year. So she's getting up there in age.
She's been in for almost 50 years. She's been in.
Yeah,
it's such a shame to see people waste their lives. And again, it's one of those things, just like we said a moment ago, that being in a cult for 30 or 40 years didn't make you think that you were in a cult. But seeing and hearing things about other cults put it into perspective. Those people who are still in the Sea Org don't realize how they are just throwing their lives away. They're convinced they're working to unplug humanity from the Matrix.
Totally. I mean, they even use that example of the Matrix that all the time. I hear it all the time, and I hear it all the time in reg cycles and recruitment cycles. Cycle. That's another word. You know what that means out in the real world? Typically, female issues. Just saying. I probably said that to someone too, and they're probably like, she doesn't need to be telling me about her cycle.
Oh my God.
I'm probably gonna be pointing this out now for the rest of the time.
That's what REECE's channel is for.
Oh my God, so funny. Yeah, I tend to do this thing, and I think it irritates people sometimes, but when the tensions are high, or something, or just the situation shitty, my brain goes straight into like joke mode. Because like I'm a big fan of comedy, and sometimes you just got to make a joke about things. So like one of my when I was on EPF, I kept getting in trouble for joking and degrading. And finally, we're like, Jenny, you just have to stop. Like you're gonna wind up getting sec checked. You're gonna like just stop. And I was like, okay, because I would like every time we were in a shitty situation, I would find something to joke about. I thought I was making it better, but apparently not.
Oh my goodness. So, are you going to on your channel? You're going to keep trying to interview people from other culty groups?
Yeah, that shit fascinates me. Like yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I am going to keep talking about my story. I got a little jarred up on the last one because I was so fucking pissed talking about the cadet org. But I'm going to do it again. I'm going to get back there and finish talking about the stupid cadet org. How insane that place is for 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds. Anyways, but and just like honestly, so much suppression on children. It's like crazy. But and I'm going to keep going all the way through a lot of what we talk about, but maybe more in detail, like getting into the things that happen, just all of that, because there's so much. I mean, how do you put 40 whatever years into like a short
I know.
thing? But yeah,
Yeah.
the thing is with these cults, like if you like listen to these things that people are saying and like you compare it to Scientology, it's not that like, yeah, they all have like maybe a different like overall kind of stated purpose, but the way they go about it is so similar. And it's so it's really interesting, and it's really interesting to see the way people get like their minds trapped. And um we do a lot of comparing to like, how it was for me, how it was for them kind of thing, which is it's just interesting to see it that way. And then
Yeah.
where the differences are and stuff. I don't know. I don't think it's everyone's cup of tea necessarily, but I think it's interesting, and it's worth knowing because it I don't know, I think it just will help people avoid falling into similar traps, you know?
I think it's great.
Scientology doesn't have a monopoly on like brainwashing and destroying people's lives, has
Yeah.
become very clear to me.
Some people, when they ask, a common question is, what can I do to try to open up my family member's eyes who's in Scientology? And you and I both know there's basically nothing you can do. But
So
one
fucking
really good
hard.
piece of advice, since they don't think they're in a cult, have them watch programs on other cults like Nexium, like the ones that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Because they're going to watch those things and they're going to go, uh-oh, this reminds me an awful lot of the thing I do. Like for me, this was an early example, and it's not what opened my eyes, but it's the first time my eyes were ever opened, even for a moment. There's a movie called Swing Kids about Nazi Germany and the
Love that
Nazi youth.
movie.
I remember watching that movie and I was like, these Nazi people remind me an awful lot of the stuff of our like, and there's one line in the movie where it's like, I'm going to write you up. And I was like, we say that a
You're
lot.
like, the fuck you just say?
I was like, they just said our thing in the Nazi movie. What am I supposed to think of that?
And the way they just report for duty, even though what they're fighting for is absolutely insane. And they just go. Yeah. That was an excellent movie. Excellent movie.
I mean, I think that must have been 1998, 1999 that I watched that. And but it didn't really open my eyes, but it's the first time that I was like, I think I'm embarrassed about my thing.
It's seeing like parallels and similarities where like you're not going to criticize your own thing, but you'll sit there and bag on somebody else and go, I can't believe people do that. And then you'll think about it and go, I sort of did that. Like,
Yes.
and like talking to these people, sometimes I'm a little like, oh shit, yeah, we did that too. Oh, yikes. It's like really opening my eyes a lot, like to things that I just didn't ever. I always looked at it from the Scientology perspective, which looks all normal. And then I'm looking at it at theirs, and then I'm kind of like, oh, well, shit, we did that too. okay, that is weird because I'm obviously telling you how weird that is. So that was weird that
Yeah.
I did it. You know, it's
It
it's really
really is a
wild.
potentially helpful thing to do to at least start getting your plant some seeds into your family members' minds. Don't ever recommend that they watch the Leah Remini show, only because they'll never talk to you again. Like you'll be on like their watch list now. I'm
Yeah.
not literally saying don't recommend, but I'm saying if your strategy is how can I just get my Scientology family member to open up their eyes, don't ask them to watch the Leah Remini show. That comes later. You
Yeah. That's
have
for
to
people who are never in or left already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
And
have
the
them
same for
watch these
Going
other
Clear.
cult programs. Yeah, Going Clear is a great one. For me, that was like obviously I was already out
That,
when I saw Going Clear, but I'll tell you
mhm.
the emotional impact that it had on me was the stories in Going Clear are stories you and I are already familiar with, and we've heard 100 stories like that. If you're being told that in Scientology, it's not going to have an emotional impact on you. You're not going to be like, oh my God, I'm outraged. Those are normal stories in Scientology.
Mhm.
Okay. Watching it on a theater in the presence of other non-Scientologists somehow just
Yeah.
brought down the avalanche of shame that like, yeah, that's our thing. I mean, that's normal. Like I sobbed through the whole thing in a theater,
Oh, did
even
you?
though I knew these people. I saw it at the director's screening of the Directors Guild. This is when Mike had just started working for me. So he took me up to New York to watch this thing.
Mhm.
It was just the shame of the information being presented to like non-members who didn't already know that was our thing. You know, I don't know. There was
Yeah.
something about it. I don't
The
know.
way the way he summarized it too. I mean, like when I was watching, because I was watching it on the internet, and my jaw just dropped. I was like, it's so put together and communicated so right that I was just kind of like, oh my God, that's it. Like that's where I was. That's, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's very emotional. But again,
Yeah.
you have to sort of be out, because you're not going to look at it when you're in. Like,
Yeah.
and when you're in and you're like really in, there's not a lot anyone's going to say to you that's going to, make you look the other way. It's just,
It's true.
you're
I
so
mean,
hardcore.
shit, look at your mom. It's like, so not your mom doesn't even need someone to say something to her. Like her life is in shambles. Her life is in ruins. She has nothing. She doesn't have any family. She's got nothing of value. And that doesn't open her eyes. Saying something to someone like that's not going to open their eyes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, look, my brother's in this year too. And, if he, like, I think my mom is lucky if she gets to see him once every couple of years. Uh,
Mm.
why is that okay? Like, why is that normal?
Where's
Like
he in
that's
this York?
just my brother.
Yeah.
Last time I knew, SMP.
Oh, wow.
He used to be in gold. So for a long time he was in gold. He was on the shoot crew with Mitch and Mark and all
What's his
them.
name?
Everyone called him QC, and then they started calling him Quentin
Mm.
Strom.
So he worked with Mark and Mitch.
Yeah.
He's been there that
So he
long.
was Matt Price, Seth Price, Sadie Johansson, Axel Johansson, Gonzo, a few other people. He worked with all of them on the shoot crew. So he did that for a long time. Then he started working in special effects, and then he got really good at that. And so he started doing that, and then doing like all the animation shit and computer stuff, and then eventually ended up doing a lot of the internet related stuff. And then when they created SMP, he went there.
See, that's crazy. So it's not even the family members who are in Scientology and out of Scientology that don't have relationships. They're both in the Sea Org and they don't have a relationship.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
Yeah.
like my brother calls once a year at Christmas, everybody, and that's because I made him do it. Like I used to take him to Big Bear because he loves snowboarding, or we were going to go do movies, or he'd do Christmas with me basically. Cause I wasn't at, his sister, and I'm adamant that he spends time with me, period. Like I was like probably his and my sister's like kind of primary caretakers most of the time. So yeah, like if he was gonna have some time for Christmas, it was gonna be with me, period. So, but I would tell him that he's not going anywhere or gonna do anything until he calls the family. And so I made him do it every fucking year. And it just became a habit. And so he still does that. Like my cousin told me that, my dad says that and stuff. But like he calls my dad once a year. When was the last time you saw my dad in person? So my sister and I, we try to go there every year. I skipped this year because I was super fucking mad about everything. And my mom wouldn't see me the last time I showed up there. So I was like, well, fuck it. But I'll go,
That's
I'll
right.
go
So,
again.
because your mom, so both your mom and your dad are Clearwater based, even though your mom's in the
Right.
Sea Org, your dad's not. At this point, they're both in Clearwater, right?
Right. Yeah. So after the Lisa McPherson thing, they sent a bunch of people from OSA Int out to OSA Flag to get that shit under control. My mom went there as the person for that area. So she took my sister with her, who was 14 at the time. And, obviously me and my brother were both posted elsewhere, so we're not going anywhere. But so she took my sister and she's on TTC. And so being the last minor child, my dad was like, well, fuck it. I guess I'll just move to Clearwater too so that I can still see her sometimes. Which turned out to be a good thing because my sister tanked, got RPF'd, routed out. RPF again, 15 and 16 years old. If I was there, somebody would have had like a whole fucking, their ears would have been loaded with my fucking foul language because I wasn't going to have any of that shit with my sister. But you should have heard what I did. The whole spat I had with James Byrd. Do you remember James Byrd? Remember he was like the CO Pack or whatever it was? Like he was supposed to be like the honcho.
He was the Sea Org ethics and image officer.
Yeah, that's what it was. I knew it was something like supposed to be all high up and shit.
It was a totally meaningless post invented just for him.
Just to fucking go around and scare people and piss them off. Like, let's be honest. And you remember the red shirt TTC when that happened, when they took all the kids from the ranch and made them start training?
That was before my time.
Oh, shit. Okay, so they took all the kids from the ranch because they're getting sick and tired of children, obviously, and all the problems that come with us horrible people, apparently, as children. And they bring them down to PAC and make them start training. And so they go, okay, good. These are going to be the future tech resources for PAC. So they have them all come down, and they were called the red shirt TTC because the uniform they wore were red button-up shirts and black bottoms. And so all these kids are like being put through tech training, the EPF and then tech training. And, there was like, they would go through different periods where all of a sudden, oh, everyone's miscalling FNs. And then there's a whole thing about that. And so anyone who's ever like done any little mistakes is like in big trouble. And at the same time, they're starting to do the overboarding, and which we weren't on a ship, people. So overboarding means you either get hosed down in front of everybody or you get a 5-gallon bucket of water dumped on you, which is so demoralizing, so inhumane, and everything else that comes with it. So I guess they decided my sister had miscalled an FN or something. She's 14 years old, like trying to learn LRH's tech with all these other people. And so, they do the whole thing like get thrown to the sea and wash away your sins and whatever bullshit they spew. And then he fucking hosed her down. So I was on post at Bridge, and someone comes in, they're like, you probably should go talk to your sister. She's like really fucking pissed. I said, well, first of all, I'm not her mother. And how about if you go get my mom? Or where are the people who are supposed to be in charge of her? They're like, yeah, no, she's actually like really mad. And I was like, what happened? And they're like, well, she got thrown overboard. I was like, motherfucker. So I went out and found her. She was walking up the street soaking ass wet, 14 years old. And I was like, she was so furious that she couldn't even talk. We walked around the block probably 2, maybe 3 times before she could even get a word out. And she just kept saying, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then finally she just broke into hysterics, was crying her eyeballs out. And, she's 14. She's trying her best. She's struggling a bit with the new rules. She's getting fucking nailed. It's just like, it's it's just a terrible, terrible experience. And then she's in front of all 50 or 60 of them being told that she's like a sinner and shit and getting hosed down. So she finally calmed down enough. And then, you know, I went with her to her dorm and she changed into dry clothes and stuff like that. And, you know, I just made sure she was as okay as she was going to be, you know. And I went and found fucking James Byrne and I was furious. Like,
Oh, is he the one who oversaw the overboarding?
he fucking hosed her down. He did it himself. So I walked up to him. I said, how fucking dare you fucking hose down a 14-year-old? I said, it's bad enough that that gets done to an adult. I said, but to a child, I don't think so. He's like, well, they aren't children. You know, these are Sea Org members and, you know, the usual garble about how we're not fucking kids and bullshit. And I said, she's fucking 14 years old. I was like, don't you fucking ever do that again. I said, and you should not do it to any fucking child. And like, you think about what you just did and the damage that you have done to a child. And I mean, I think he could tell I was so fucking pissed. I was barely getting words out. I was so mad. And we just, I guess, agreed to disagree or something. I don't know. And walked off. But then afterwards, someone's like, oh my God, did you really just do that with James Byrne? I was like, he can go fuck himself. I said, it will be so much worse if he fucking does it again. I will like probably physically attack him. And so
he has to be dead by now, don't you think?
he did pass. I think he actually got ill. You know, when he wasn't being that douchey fucking ethics and image person, he actually used to be a very nice guy. I knew him. I remember when he was at AO when I was a kid. He was actually very nice.
When I was at Flag in '96, he had just been made the COFLB on some sort of garrison mission. And he just sort of had carte blanche to do whatever he wanted because, you know, he'd worked with L. Ron Hubbard and he had this just incredible ethics and production history. And he was one of these guys who was his job was to scare people.
Yeah. Tell stories about like the L. Ron Hubbard days.
Yeah.
Well, when we were there, here's what I mean. We really got thrown into the ocean. Like, totally don't fucking care.
So it's almost like they like put him out to pasture at PAC to give him some things to do. And, you know, when I was at PAC, he would do the close order drilling with all the Sea Org members at muster and then basically ask us all to write up success stories so that he could send them up to COB. So COB could be like, oh, good, James Byrne, you're being such a good little Sea Org member over there at PAC. Good job.
Fucking close order drilling. I cannot even watch it in a movie without cringing. Like, because we were made to start doing that when we were in the cadet org. And if we went out of sync, they'd be like, drop and give me 20. You know, we're like 10 and having to do like push-ups in front of everyone because, you know, ugh, that fucking thing is so stupid. I mean, this whole like Navy bullshit is like bullshit. You know, when we used to wear the actual uniforms, I'll tell you, one of the most humiliating moments I think I've ever had. We were wearing the white ones. The
dress whites or the summer whites, the dress whites or the summer
working whites.
Working
because Bridge used to be
with
part
the
of
socks
STB.
up with the socks.
Like, I don't know about the socks.
The knee-high
but
white
they were
socks.
Like white uniforms, white Navy uniforms, and Bridge used to be part of STB. So during the weekdays, obviously we had to wear normal clothes because we were interacting with a lot of non-Scientologists. But then on weekends, when we went to go study, we would have to wear our like either working blues or working whites. And so it was sometimes we're wearing working whites. And I was standing out in front of the HGB and the Navy was rolling through Hollywood Boulevard. Like I guess I got a little time off or something. And this guy comes up to me and he goes, which branch are you with? And I'm like, what? I'm from here. And he's like, yeah, but which branch are you with? Because he fucking knew that this was just a load of bullshit. And so he's just fucking with me. And I'm like, I was like super confused. And I was like, why are we wearing the same fucking clothes as them? Like, I was like, you know what I mean? I was 17 at the time. And I thought, oh shit. So after that, I started wearing a sweater with my uniform, which we're not supposed to do. You know how we have uniform inspections every day? They're like, you need to take that fucking sweater off, Jenny. I'm like, sure, okay, I'm going to go do that. And I make sure I always wore it, especially when I was around Hollywood or anywhere in public. I would wear a sweater over it. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing. Retarded.
I never had to wear those uniforms because they already stopped wearing those by the time I got there, except for Sea Org Day. But what was funny is I would get sent up to like Sacramento for some various tour, or Denver I went to a bunch of times, or even Albuquerque. And I was from Asho. So my name tag, I was Asho Day. So my name tag said ASHOD. And I don't know, I felt like the uniform looked decent or passable or whatever. But I remember I was standing in front of, I was at Starbucks, and the cashier is looking at it and going, Ashod? What's Ashod? I'm
I was
thinking to
thinking
myself,
you were going to say your asshole or something.
asshole? Asshole? Asshole day? What's asshole day? Asshole? It's H-Osa working at asshole? And even that was embarrassing because then I wasn't, because even the idea of that, I was about to explain to this guy what Asho meant. I was like, yeah, no, it's not happening.
You're like, never mind, I'm taking my tag off. No, we had to wear Class A when we went out to the orgs at first. Like I remember wandering around Chicago and Class A and being told, thank you for your service. And I was like, well, this isn't fucking awkward at all. Like I will. And so next time they send me on a recruit tour, I'm like, I'm wearing the bridge uniform, period. Which was, we'd already changed to wearing like white button-up shirts and black pants. It was a little more normal-ish. At least I looked like I worked at a restaurant. That was the thing that everyone thought, like I was serving a server at a restaurant. But that was better than all this fake Navy shit.
One of the funny cultural things for me was because it's so rare in Scientology at the service org levels to see commanders or captains in the Sea Org. Like commanders or captains are only from international management. And you see them at Flag all the time in Clearwater, but you don't see them in LA ever. And I guess unless you work at the Int base, you're just not used to seeing them all the time. And so then when I would be in an airport, when I would see someone walk by with a commander or a captain outfit, it was like, oh shit. And then you're like, oh, it's just the pilot. You're like,
you're missing all my withholds.
But to me, because the pilots and the navigators or whatever, or wear captains and commanders stripes, I still had like this incredible, respect for them just because of the association with the Sea Org ranks or whatever. And then it was actually, I got so disappointed when I found out that pilots are actually treated like shit. They don't, like, pilots in the industry are just they're treated poorly. Like they're just not. Really? And I remember being so heartbroken. So I'm like, but they're captains. It's so important, Anyway, just this weird association I had.
I didn't know that. I mean, we saw like the top brass more because, like when it was FCB, we were there, and so the execs would come down and be around and stuff like that. So we would see them, like if we were there on study for the weekends, or if we had to go over there that's where we did our course. So if we even were doing course at night or the morning or something like that, we might see them around. And then when it became FLO is when they split Bridge off and said, Bridge is like an international org, but you're not management, you're pubs. So you're kind of like over there. Yeah, it was weird. It was interesting though, because one of the interesting things about being in Bridge was the fact that we were actually, because we weren't management, which is when you are, everything is required to funnel through the telex lines, right? And in writing. But for Bridge, because of the nature of the organization, we were actually in touch with every single level from public to int directly. Phone, visits, whatever. There was no like off limit thing for us. We couldn't cross order management. Cross order, there's another one for you. Anyways, we couldn't do that. But yeah, we interacted with all these different levels, and that's, I think, how we were able to see so many different things and know a lot of what was going on in orgs. And like, so if we had to, like, sometimes, like if we had to go to, like, our CO would go to FNCC, which is the Flag Network Coordination. It's just a big meeting of management bodies, right? And then we would always have like a representative show up at the cont level as well continental level as well
Yeah.
to represent and, take up things. And I don't know how it happened because I'm like the last person you would send, but I think they just desperately needed somebody to go. So it's like, Jenny, just go sit the meeting. And I think I remember bringing up something that I said, I've been to most of these orgs. I'm just not sure that, like when the last time was that you were there to see that, like you have the ATEC aid, you have the ADSM aid, you have the CSCLO, you have this person, that person, all running orders down. You got to man up this, you got to accomplish this, you got to do this. I said, I don't think you guys realize that you're sending those to the same 3 people. And they're like, no, they have 30 staff. I said, but 3 of them show up. So your coordination is all, if you haven't seen it with your own eyeballs, then you don't realize that you're demanding the same thing from the exact same people. That was the last time they ever had me at that meeting.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder what the cause and effect relationship is, or I'll think about it as on the decline of Scientology, like whether the multiple redundant, useless layers of management staffed by people who don't even know what it's like working in an org is part of the cause of Scientology's decline, or if it's just an incidental fact to it. But I feel like it's got something to do with it. I mean, I don't know. Like, when's the last time David Miscavige stepped foot in an actual org? I mean, other than Flag. Going to Flag does not show you what it's like being in an org. Like, David Miscavige,
that are the grand openings. Like, that's just not the same thing.
Well, and everything about the grand openings are so fake that, and that's the other problem. It's almost like I would witness this at PAC. When it was known that COB was going to be coming to the base, which is like, if you were COB, why would you want it telegraphed that people know you're coming? Everyone's going to run around and make everything fake for you. But if you're COB, this is how I would think. If you're COB, don't you want to show up and see how it is in reality when people don't know you're coming? Isn't that what you would want to see? So it almost, in some respects, he knows that people put on a fake show for him. And it's almost like that's what he wants to see.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it's got to be something like that.
Yeah. Because otherwise you wouldn't telegraph ahead that you were coming.
Right. You wouldn't have like your personal staff, like making sure everybody was like, all together.
I just realized what it is. I just answered my own question. David Miscavige's own representatives, the RTC reps at PAC, would be the ones who would look terrible if Miscavige actually showed up and saw the real state of things. So it's almost his own representatives are incentivized to get everyone to put on the fake show for him, if only to save their own asses. That's what's going on there.
Yeah. I'm telling you, like, whenever he was going to come, they like CMO be running around like crazy people, making us clean like hell, insider drawers, outsider drawers, like everything had to be like amazingly clean. This would happen over at FCB as well as in PAC. And you had to you'd be up cleaning if it took till 3:00 in the morning, till everything was just beyond spotless. And that's what you did. And then you had to show up the next day with like the whatever, try to be whatever. And halftime, he didn't even show up. He kind of beeline straight for his office or something. And it wasn't even, walking around. It was like, I guess, just in case he did or something, I don't know. They like to make everyone go like super on edge, when it came to him. And I don't know. I got a little disillusioned about him, when I would do these daily reports to him every fucking night, I'd have to have it sent so that he could get it by midnight or something like such. But like usually it included a number of steps that I would do before my head hits a pillow. So, and it was pretty much known that I would work on, we'd even have to give a time estimate sometimes. Like, we have 4 more hours on this, 6 more hours on this, these things are going to be done before we go to bed. And so you would kind of know that Jenny's going to be up to like 4 or 5 in the morning. And I went one day, I'd done that. I went to bed at, I don't know, 4, whatever, like usual. Got back up at 7:30, went to muster and everything like that, 8:00. And then I had to run over to the uniform office for, I think, a new person or something. I don't remember what it was. And he was just coming out of the elevator with his staff at about like 11:30. And I was like, I went to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and was back in at 8, and you're just coming in. I was like, let's just hope we don't have any run-ins because it ain't gonna be good. And he was coming to Bridge, and he's coming to the warehouse, where we were building the plant and everything. He was coming, coming there a fair bit. And so a lot of times they're like, H still needs to be out there for H still presence. But they're like, but Jenny, you need to stay. Like, we're gonna have these things done, by the time the DR goes tonight, like, it doesn't matter, he's here. Like, someone else go and do, like, maybe an org board thing wasn't figured out. So they'd be like, someone else go fix that. Jenny's not leaving until these CSWs are done and whatever. So luckily I didn't ever have to go there when he was there. He came by, he did come into Bridge a time or two, but I don't know where I was. I don't care either. Never had like,
Well,
I don't know. Never had great respect, I guess. But
crazy stuff. Well, I'll tell you what. One more reminder for everyone who's just joining us possibly is Jenny's channel is Cults and Atheists, a search for knowledge and healing. One of the fun things about having a channel, both of us having channels, is anytime that if you think of something that's like, oh, we need to have we need to talk about this, or, oh, this is a story that we've got to talk about, or I just remembered something. Just let me know anytime and we can do they don't all have to be 3.5-hour conversations. They could be 30-minute conversations. It could be whatever you want.
Little blips. Yeah, I think a lot of times when I'm listening, I'm driving. So I'm like, oh, I got to remember that. I'm old. So by the time I get where I'm going, I totally forget. I'm like, but I will try to remember, because I think there are a lot of things that you do talk about where I'm like, oh, I know about that. I could probably help or something. But then I just forget. I'll just have to work out a system. I already reached out to Sterling. I told him that we should do a cadet org stories.
Oh, totally. I mean, I literally keep track of everything just on a note, on my notes app. All my YouTube plans and ideas are just on a notes app.
I should do that, but I still think it'd be really funny. Yeah, if me, Sterling, and Mike did it, because we were all in the cadet org together at the same time. We left, but in different directions, right around the same time too. Actually, I remember when Justin first arrived. We didn't know Justin.
I've heard this story that no one believed that Justin and Sterling were really twins, much less brothers. Or brothers, much less twins.
Sterling was always there with us. Like, growing up, I just remember him always being there. And one day, this other kid is there. It's like a new kid at the daycare. It's like the same thing happened when Mike showed up. We're all like, who's this guy? Because most of us go from the CEO to there. But, Mike was new. And then, one day Justin shows up. And we're like, who is that? And Sterling's like, that's my brother. We're like, no, it's not. He's like, yeah, it's my brother. We're like, no, it's not. Nathan's your brother, whatever. And then finally we're like, so we go and talk to him. And he says, name's Justin Miscavige. And we're like, well, they obviously don't have the same last name, so they're not brothers. But we get to talking, and we realize they are brothers. And then they drop the bomb on us that they're twins. And we're like, no, you're not. So they had to deal with this for like a long time. Finally, we just accepted that they were twin brothers with different names and different siblings.
I know, it's crazy. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We've been going for 3.5 hours.
Ooh, that's longer than I thought.
I did 4 hours with Natalie.
Holy shit. That's a long time.
Oh, you and Natalie would get along great too.
It's funny. I saw her name and it kept ringing a bell, and didn't really know why. And then I realized I was a cadet when Lana was in the Sea Org. When her sister Lana was. I don't remember Natalie, even though she was probably there at the same time. But I remember Lana because she was definitely around when I was a cadet.
There you go. Yeah, they've just got such amazing stories as well.
Yeah, and Natalie's just so much fun to talk to. What was that?
Natalie's just so much fun to talk to.
Yeah, I've watched some of her stuff. I haven't seen it all. It's just too hard to keep up with everybody. So, but yeah, I have listened to some of her stuff. She's very she's very clear, I guess, and her communication and what she's saying and, you know, whatever, where I feel like I bounce around everywhere. And I also, sometimes I'm struggling with trying to remember things and, but whatever, you know.
Would you ever have
So yeah,
thought
if
that
you
there's
watch
so
my,
many former Scientologists on YouTube that it's hard to keep up with all of it?
that's the thing. I mean, yeah, it is. It's hard to keep up with everybody. And, you know, some of these people there, you know, are on there were like my brother and sister groups in those circles or whatever. So some of them are
Mm.
there, and then like the stuff with the protesters, I've watched some of that stuff. I fucking love it. It's like trash TV, but it's so awesome you can't stop watching it.
It's funny. I know there's a whole contingent of people who think the protests aren't helpful or they're too antagonistic or whatever. And I go, you know what? The number of Scientologists, under the radar Scientologists, who contact me and tell me that they're fixated, they can't stop watching it, they love it, it's their nightly TV now. It's like, you know, there can be different opinions on anything, but I can tell you
Sure.
the protests are having a huge impact. It's the biggest thing that's happened in the world of Scientology since Anonymous. And everyone doesn't have to love it, but they're fantastic and I love it. And I'm going to
Yeah, I mean, thanks
do
to
everything I
Anonymous, that's
can
the
to keep
first
them
time I
going.
saw Xenu. If it
Yeah.
wasn't for them, I wouldn't have heard about that.
Yeah.
Because they were protesting at the pack base. But you know, like I think the protesters, it's they're not gonna pull the people in there out. I mean, that's not really the
No,
point. And so I
it was
think,
never the point, and Anonymous didn't do
yeah,
that either.
yeah, and yeah, no, not Anonymous didn't do it either. I think it helps more with maybe like on the other end, it just lets people, sets off like maybe a little alarm for anyone who might be considering going in, like, hey, maybe I should check this out first. There's a lot of hoopla going
Yeah.
on here. Maybe let me look at this a little bit. So I think in that sense, it's really effective. I mean, no one else is stopping that flow better. Like honestly.
Exactly. All right, guys. I see 2 new members. I'll give a shout out to Jen Hack. Thank you for becoming a member. And Eat More Pizza now gifted 5 memberships. That's amazing. Thank you. Eat
Wow.
More Pizza now. So yeah, Jenny, just let me know if you want to have any chats about anything in the future, even just short little things, anecdotes, whatever you want to do. This is just
Okay.
it's just a lot of fun to be able to talk about this stuff.
I
There's only
know,
so many
right?
people you can talk about it with who know what the hell you're talking about, you know?
I know. It's funny. Yeah, like I was last little anecdote. I already told you, I told you about it before, but just for your audience, since I all know that you aren't exactly like cushy and cozy with Chris Shelton. For a while, Aaron was a
Chris who?
resource to get. Huh?
Chris who?
The name that we shall not say. So for a while, Aaron there, growing up in Scientology, was a resource for Chris Shelton to get a Knots auditor, since we clarified that earlier, but for the AO big man up. And so Aaron was,
Oh,
since he wasn't
you got
going
to
to be
clarify
one.
that you got to clarify that we're talking about Sea Org time. So
Oh yeah, Sea Org time. In the Sea
okay,
Org.
so go
When
ahead.
Chris was in the Sea Org and Aaron was the Sea Org and I was in the Sea Org, all at the PAC base. And Chris was in what was called the Continental Liaison Office, which was the management body for the Western United States. And he got given the task and responsibility to get the advanced org the 20 auditors they needed to flag to train to deliver OT5, the high level up there to handle the body things. And Aaron was a resource for him. He was a bit of a floater. And I was trying
But
to
no one
collect the
knows what you
people.
mean by that. No one knows what you mean by that. So I was just
Okay.
taken off of post at ASHO and I was
Yeah.
put into a training pool of basically people who could be used as coins, as you said, to
Yeah.
trade for transfer. So that's what you mean. Aaron was a resource.
Yeah. Sorry about that. A little Scientology jargon. But yeah, so he was kind of a floater because I guess they had to figure out who they were going to spring using him. And so I was trying to get people to come help us at the warehouse because we just had a shit ton to do because the basic books were coming and we were just collecting people from anywhere, everywhere to just come and help for however many hours we could get them for. And someone from CMO said, go get Aaron. He's doing nothing. He's not posted. He's just studying. Grab him. So I was wandering around. I finally found you at the same time Chris Shelton saw me. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, just going to see if you can come and do some all hands over a bridge. All hands means everyone's pitching in to get something done. And he lost his mind. He was so pissed. He's like, that's my resource, and the knots man up. And he like totally freaked out. And I was kind of like, pump the brakes. I'm just trying to get some people to come help, stuff books and boxes for a little while. And he, like, I guess he thought I was trying to steal him or something. I don't know. He had a huge, like, shit fit about it. So needless to say, Aaron kept, on his little moseying around doing study.
I would have
saw
loved
you.
nothing more. I would have loved nothing more than to gone and done some all hands at bridge. And what's crazy is I never ended up being used as a resource for the Knots Man Up anyway. I actually ended up at AOLA as the lower level cramming officer. I didn't replace anybody.
Right.
Like,
I
nonsense.
know. I remember that. And I was kind of like, and there's no knots auditor. So whatever. Didn't you get a few months of like floating out of that though?
Well, my floating was I was on full-time study in the senior HCO training pool. I just was literally on study at the CTO and ASHO full-time. And I would fuck off half the time, just find people to just method 9 word clear, just disappear to my room for a few hours. Yeah, I fucked off all the time.
I have like eagle eyes. I saw you wandering a time or two. I was like, dude ain't doing shit.
You're like, I could be using him on the all hands right now, and he's walking around LRH way like a bum.
Oh my God, it's so funny. I don't even know why. That's one of my memories that I have of Chris Shelton from in there. Like he absolutely lost his shit because he just assumed I was going to try and steal you. It's like, calm down. It's going to be okay.
Not much has changed there.
Apparently not.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a blast. Subscribe to Jenny's channel at Cults and Atheists, a search for knowledge and healing. I'll chop this up for people who didn't want to watch the whole thing, and I'll put little clips out and so that people can digest it a little bit more.
Yeah, because some people have like day jobs, Aaron.
Who? I get it. You're funny. All right, guys, this has been fun. Thank you for hanging out this evening. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.